It's a pleasant good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock and it is September 11th. I know we all know what that day is, September 11th. Um,
9/11.
yeah, 9/11, 9/11, and we are all here. Mr. Caswell Franklin, the general, is here bright and early. He's normally bright and early, but busying himself, getting all his notes together. But he's right here, ready to go. And I have my co-host with me, very able co-host, looking lovely all the way from New York, Miss Heather Cole. Heather, how you doing?
Thank you. I am doing well, but New York is not doing so well. We
Oh
are having
no.
thunder and lightning and all kinds of things outside. It's so gray. You would
Oh
not believe it.
no. Oh no.
But for the
Oh
past two
no.
days, the weather has been bad. Today was not so bad, but now I am glad I am inside. I don't have to go back outside, so I'm not going back outside. Oh no.
Oh, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And so it's not that hot then.
No, the weather hasn't really started to change. It's just that
Okay.
it is bad with rainy weather, but it was still
Rainy
quite warm.
weather. Okay,
Yes.
okay. Wonderful. Well, at least it's not a heat wave.
Yep.
To put it at that. Well, I'm seeing Valerie Hoyt. Hi, Valerie. Good evening. Valerie's telling us good evening, guys. There is Mystic.
Evening.
Yes, a Mystic Angel saying good evening, and Mark Clark
Evening.
is saying good night, everyone. Hey, Mark. And Wayne Hoyt saying good evening, everyone. And we have, listen, we just came on under 81 persons already, 81 students. Mr. Franklin, listen, I met a lady today. She said, listen, I watched the whole thing last night with my data. It eat up all my data. But she was, she was so glued on. Another woman told me, Marcia, I have not missed any sessions. I'm no absenteeism from this student. She said I've been at every class, right, Heather? This is
Yep.
a class for all of us. Honestly, I look forward to it, and it's great. Mr. Yeah, and remember, guys, to like and subscribe to the Africa Bit channel right there on YouTube. I had a very interesting day today with Facebook. Mr. Franklin and Heather, Facebook wrote me to let me know somebody reported me that my page is fraudulent, and so they I was locked out of my page for a moment there. I don't know those who, okay, so somebody's on Facebook, so they're seeing me, but I this is a message Facebook sent me. Not that I had done anything against their community standards, but I was reported. So we know who those are. We know those who those are. Those, they when you open your door, you see them running in the yard and eating up the scraps of the ground and all about, right? You see them all about it. Sometimes you see these little fowls all crossing the road. You go to a hotel. You seen these yard fowls, Mr. Franklin, all over Barbados. You see them?
all over the place, and the thing is, this show is getting to them.
Yes,
If we were not having an impact, they would leave us alone.
yes,
So
yes.
this show
Right.
is having an impact,
It is.
so
Right.
It
As
is
you
be-
know,
happening. Go
you
ahead.
know what they say, the pot is boiling. And we're putting more ingredients in the pot and they're bubbling and I'm bubbling. They can't help but smell it and see it. It is perfuming the air.
Yes.
So they will try everything to stop it, but the pot will not stop bubbling
so
No,
until
it,
someone told me this evening I was on my way home because I wanted to get home in time. The Iranian person called me and he told me that I was getting some lashes today. I, I I was driving, so I didn't have a lot of time to talk with him. But apparently, something I said on this show has them offended. But I said so many things, you know what I mean?
yeah, I
This
know.
this is the one. This is the one where I claim that there was a teacher who got this little girl pregnant.
Hmm.
That seems to hit a raw nerve. So I
So
go.
there.
If I want to investigate it, I want the truth come out.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to be unfair or anything like that. I just figure, well, when Bob ran in an election that he was perfectly entitled to do, and within days that charge is brought before him. In a few weeks that he was before a committee. And so why some person could take an entire term, more than a term, and nothing happens. I don't think his offense, Alvin's offense, was horrendous. Pedro Shepard, I don't think that they have done anything so grave that they had to be dragged up, suspended, and half pay. I have people suspended half pay and full pay for 7 years, and they have not done anything about them. But they're going to do something about those people because those people are their political enemies. You see, this is what this problem in Barbados, justice is covered. If you're a B, you get away with stuff. And it might be, I might suspect that this teacher that I talk about, he might have political connections.
Well, we never know. And the thing is that what I loved about it is that you are asking for an investigation. And, that's the thing, that we have to remember that we do not have an opposition. We do not have, we don't have an opposition in parliament. So we are the opposition. And I was doing a little study on the word opposition, and the word opposition is derived from the Latin word opposition, which means to oppose. So opposition can be understood as resistance to the power of the state when that power is exerted oppressively. So we have to remember that in this democracy, there is a role for the opposition. And this is what Barbados has to understand. And don't let anybody guilt trip you. Don't you? I was doing some research, Mr. Caswell and Heather, on the role of the BLP in opposition. And when you see the things that they brought up, sometimes they stop parliament, they do all kinds of different things. And this is all supposed to be, to ensure that there's democracy. There are always two sides to an argument. Right now in Barbados, we are only hearing one side. And that's why a show like this, Mr. Franklin, is important. And it's okay for you to ask questions. It's important, okay, because this is not, you know what, some people might think that we are under an autocratic government, but in truth and fact, and in fact, this is supposed to be a democracy. And as long as this is a democracy, the role of the opposition is very, very important. And that's what we are. The opposition is a means of a system of constitutional checks and balances, guarding against power abuse. Don't we see that that is happening? Methods employed to modify the actions of government. Okay?
We
So
must
it is,
remember.
yeah, go ahead,
Sorry.
go ahead.
We must remember that democracy dies in darkness. If we do not speak, no one will know what is going on because there are a set of people who wish to cover up everything. So if we don't see anything, nobody will know, nobody will become wiser, and democracy will die. It will die.
And that is why we are grateful for Caswell Franklin. Don't kill me. Caswell Franklin. We are grateful for him because he's the one from the time he was in the Senate. He's scrutinizing all these bills, closely examining them, right? Closely examining the work of the government. When he was an opposition senator, he was doing his work, and people saying he's giving trouble. No, this is a democracy. It's important, very important, that the two sides are aired, right? He's asking the government to explain its actions. Very important. Who is asking the government in this country to explain its actions? Why would people believe they need to go to report my page to Facebook when all it is doing is asking the government to explain its actions? That's what we're going to do tonight. We are going to what? We're going to look at the bills. Look at the proposed laws. Provide alternatives to the government policies. That's what the opposition does. This is a democracy. And it is, once it's a democracy, there is a role of the opposition. This is not one sided. This is not one sided. And do not let anybody put any guilt trip on you. Feel proud to share the show. Feel proud to share it. Everybody, can you just take a pause and share? Share the link. If you have not, you are the opposition. You. It is you. It is not Mr. Franklin. Mr. Franklin makes up the opposition. I make up the opposition. Heather makes up the opposition. Yeah? The people are the opposition in this country. It is the people. It is you, the Bajans. You that they educated and gave you free education to do what? To sit down and say you have an education. You can read, you can analyze, you can think. You have a lot of you have time. You have some time on your hands. Research. That's what you do, right? This is what you do. This is not a banana republic. This is a democracy, and as long as it's a democracy, we are going to speak. You know, Mr. Franklin, I went down to the police today to drop off our letter of request, and they were so happy to see me. They gave me Heather a big smile. And, hi, Mrs. Weeks, you're back.
They know you know.
I said to the police, I said, you know what, we might as well just send in a letter with all the different dates. He said, I think that's a good idea. Because we are within our rights. We are within our rights. We are within our rights. So you open your mouth, you speak at work. When you're at work, speak at work, speak at church. Yes, speak at church, speak at work. Anywhere you see people congregate, open your mouth, because you are the opposition. It is you. It is you. We're tagging you tonight. It's you. It's not Mr. Franklin. It's not Heather. It's not me. It's not Lynette. It's not Maxine McLean. It is you. Look in the mirror. Nobody's coming to save you. It's us. It's us. It's us. Yeah?
Sometimes you may say something a million times, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is only on the 1,001th time that you finally get to someone and they understand. So you must never stop. If it's our intent to educate people and let them know the possibilities of what can happen that will be in their favor in Barbados, we must never stop speaking about it. We must paint a vision for the people that can become a reality. That is what we must do.
Yes, and there's a little video that of something that that I had shared earlier, and somebody did a little video of it. And so I'm just gonna I hope it's a smaller one that talks about us being opposition, and I just want to share that because I want to start off with that today, to remember we know what our purpose is. Well, Miles Monroe said something that when purpose is known, abuse is inevitable, right? So when we know what the purpose is, when did I say that right? When purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable. Okay, when we don't know the purpose of a thing, but we know what our purpose is, we know who we are, right? And we are the opposition. Yes. And so we speak up. I see like Mr. Franklin wants to say something about us being the opposition. Yeah, I know you know all about this, right?
No, I quite agree with you, because there is one voice in government. One. No one else dares speak up and speak their mind. Backbenchers, government ministers, nobody. So somebody else, there must be another view in the country. And if we don't do that, somebody wrote that we'll be a banana republic. I think we're heading there fast. We are heading there banana. This person just put it again. If we will become a banana republic if we sit down and do nothing. I like bananas, but I don't want to be in a banana republic. Trust me.
No,
We have
no.
rights, and we have rights. And we have that's one thing I want to talk about tonight when it comes to the rights of public officers and how they're being mistreated in this country,
Yes.
especially the ones who are sick, and these people don't
Before
care.
you start, Mr. Franklin, I want to just ask people to share. Okay, make sure that you're sharing this with your friends and family. And as Heather says, you might have said, "Well, I shared it last night, and I told them this, and keep doing it. You're gonna stick one of these days." Okay, so keep sharing it. It's very important that we keep sharing. I want you to remember too about the march. We could come on here and we can listen and we can take notes, but there are some actions that need to go with what we're doing. This is a class, and there's an assignment, right? There's a practical to it, and one of the practicals is on Saturday. Saturday is a part of the practical. You're going to be the opposition. You don't show up. You don't show up when you're supposed to show up. Huh? You're gonna be like those delinquents in the when in parliament. No, man, you gotta show up. And where do we show up? We show up on the street. That's where we meet. We meet on the street. Massey car park. Come on, opposition. We can't stay home. Opposition. What we talking about? Opposition. Put on your clothes and your nice skin clothes. Brush your teeth. Come out. Yes, and get ready. Bring your water, your umbrella. Opposition. We get ready. Get ready for Saturday, right? So I think there's oh, that's I think just past my house there. That was quite loud. But let's just play this clip. I know Mr. Caswell is going to come to us soon. Just play the clip about us being the opposition. And then we will go. Go ahead, please. We do not have an opposition department. So when they Okay, it's not playing. So let's try it another time. Try it another time. But what I say about this little video, you're gonna see it going around, guys. Opposition, I'm speaking to you now. Sit up straight. Sit up, opposition. You're gonna see this little clip going around. It has on it the flyer for the march, and I'm gonna ask you to share it. We're in the opposition. When you're in the opposition, Mr. Franklin, you don't have a whole lot of money, right? It's the government that has the money, so we don't have the open money to do any ads, right, Heather? So it's a lot of us, That's how we're so powerful. So if everywhere 200 of us on right now, and as you see that little clip, so far, you share it up. You share it up, right? I know this is going to go up to about 400 tonight. So share it up. Share up the flyer. Share the flyer. We're going to put up the flyer soon, right? Share up the flyer, but the march. This is not a talk shop. Right, Steve Moore? Yes, Sonia Ashby, Nigel Newton. Yeah. Yes. Sonia Ashby, everybody who's on Mystic, Monica Payne, everybody make sure we come out, we're not no lazy. You hear Mr. Franklin talk about these lazy people. We're not lazy. That's not us. This is a hard working opposition. So we're going to dress up and we're coming out in a way. We make sure we have our flags on Saturday and our beige and flags, beige and color, and our posters. I wish I had my t-shirt. I want a special t-shirt, Mr. Franklin. Know which shirt that is. I want my special shirt, right? So guys, so I'm giving you time to share up. All right. So now let's go over. Class begins. Heather, get ready with your questions. Class begins. So over to Mr. Franklin. No, I think he has something he's gonna start with, and then we can ask him questions. Go ahead, Mr. Franklin.
Yes, I want to deal with the public service and how the officers who are sick are being treated. Let me give a little run first. Prior to national insurance, when national insurance provided for sickness benefit, public officers were already entitled as part of their contract of service, their conditions of service, to paid sick leave. 21 days in the first instance that were appointed, and then if the illness continues, you can get up to 6 months, and thereafter a further 6 months if the doctor certifies that you will still be able to work after that period of illness. That's called an extension of sick leave. But public officers had that in their contract before national insurance. National insurance came into being, and you already have public officers with conditional service saying that they will get paid for their sick leave. So it would have been silly to put those same people under the national insurance scheme.
Okay, they're saying that you're a bit low, that your volume is a bit low. I'm not sure why. Are you
Let me try
hearing?
again.
Yes. Okay.
Better now?
Okay, let us know if it's better. Keep speaking, Mr. Franklin.
So it would have been a bit silly to give persons sick leave from the government under their contract of service as appointed public officers, and then also give them national insurance, because they would end up with 66 and 2/3% from the national insurance and 100% from the government when you are ill. So government in 1966 took the decision that public officers will not be entitled to sickness benefit from national insurance. As a result, those officers paid less national insurance than anybody else, than the people in the private sector. For that reason alone, they don't pay for unemployment benefit, and they don't pay for sickness benefit. Because, as I said, they would be entitled to more money when they're out sick than they would have been getting when they were well and working. And that wouldn't work for anybody. Now, government is trying to save money, and they have been treating public officers with scant respect. They have not been giving them the sick leave that they're entitled to under the general orders for the public service, because these things are spelled in the general orders. And the person who was delegated that power to approve sick leave was the chief personnel officer. We don't have a chief personnel officer anymore. The job has not been combined with that of the Permanent Secretary Ministry of Public Service to become Director General of the Public Service. That was a foolhardy move, because the Permanent Secretary Ministry of Civil Service, in some instances, was able to pull back the chief personnel officer when they were doing something wrong. And as a result, there were steps to make sure that that chief personnel officer didn't want to be second guessed. So the Prime Minister was convinced to change the post, to combine the two and give one person two functions. The functions you don't have to complain to yourself and review yourself. That's basically it. So, but that happens in the public service. The person is called Director General now. But the Director General is the person responsible for approving sick leave. The Director General then turned around and decided, but it was the chief personnel officer, decided that she will delegate that function to certain heads of departments and with certain guidelines. Mind you, she can't do that. The person cannot do that because this is a delegated function. And there is a maxim in law, I think lawyers in here will understand it or know it. It goes like, delegatus non potest delegare. All that means is that delegate can't sub-delegate. Unless in the instrument that appoint you to do something and say you can delegate that function, you can't do it. But, we got a lot of lazy people in public service who don't want to do their work, so they pass on the work to somebody else. And no, there is no standard for public officers. If you go to one department, some heads departments approve the sick leave, other departments say no, and worse yet, your salary is by the second Tuesday of the month. Your salary is already sent off to the Treasury for processing and stuff. So if you didn't work after that period, they decided we're not going to pay you, but your salary was already approved and processing, so you get paid for that month. They're not going into your salary and taking out the money in the next pay session or the one after that. Or sometimes when it accumulates for a long time, they're going and then don't tell people how much money. Ask them how much they can afford. They just take out. So you have some public officers who take home very little pay because without your consent. Because if I owe you money, you don't have authority to go and walk in my house and take it up. If I owe you, put me in court. Because I'm saying I don't owe you, there's a dispute. But because these people have a salary for you the next month, they're going to put down your salary. That is illegal. But it happens throughout, mostly in, I'll tell you something, more so in the prison service than any place else. People are just pushing their hand in your money. But the law does not allow to do that. Sometimes when you get over this, the extension that they had the department can do or is doing, but not legally, then it goes to the Personal Administration Division. They call it some other name now. But everybody knows PAD. And they then tell you, oh, you have extension of sick leave on half pay or extension of sick leave on no pay. There is nowhere in the laws of Barbados where you are allowed sick leave on half pay or no pay. The law is extension of sick leave on full pay.
But I have a question though, and somebody is alluding to that. Why? First of all, I want to know: is this something that has started under this administration, or is this something that has been going on?
It happened. It started some time back, even before these people came in. But now it has grown to become ridiculous. These people are now doing it more and more, and they're perfecting it. They're perfecting this abuse.
And what? But I don't understand. I'm saying, why are they allowed to get to continue this? What about the unions? These public servants, don't they complain to the unions that they're part of?
They complain to the unions, and the unions are all BLP unions now. So what do you get? These officers now, sometimes you take out so much money that they don't have enough money to buy food. That is contrary to the laws of Barbados. That is contrary to the Protection of Wages Act, which people say doesn't bind the Crown or doesn't bind the state, but it does. This Protection of Wages Bill, well, it was an act now, says that you cannot take out more than a third of a person's money. Because if you take out more than that, the person ain't able to eat.
Correct.
It comes out of a convention from the International Labour Organization that the government of Barbados signed on to. As soon as we became independent, we signed on to that convention. And that convention bars the government from taking out people's money like that. But they do it nonetheless. It's called the Protection of Wages Convention. And we also have a Protection of Wages Act. But they go on and they ignore the law. And Sab, rather than go and fight things like this, they are going fighting that they don't get the chance to go to the ILO for beatings. You know? They're not fighting in the interest of the workers, they're fighting for trips. So the workers' issues are being pushed on the back burner, or not even on the back burner, because that's still been lighted. And they fight for things that they can go a trip overseas to get the stipends and stuff, rather than fight for these workers. Now, let me tell you why I say this, and why, and I'll give them, whoever is listening, take down your notepads because they want you to write it down. General Order 5.19.1.
Let's go slow. We write it, we're taking notes. So tell me, what is it, General Order?
Yes, 5.19.1. 519.1. Absence on account of illness in excess of the period stated in the first schedule shall be deducted from the vacation leave of an officer. But in the case of a serious illness of an officer, if the duration of such illness exceeds the period stated in the said schedule, the chief personnel officer may in accordance with General Order 524.1, 5.24.1 to 5.24.3, grant extension of sick leave, a period of extension of sick leave. All right. So now 519 says that if you are sick and they go over the allotted sick leave that you should get, which is the 21 days for permanent employees, 14 for temporary, then that must be dealt with under the General Orders 524.1 to 524.3. 524.1 says extension of leave with full pay may be granted on the ground of ill health to any officer other than a casual employee for a period not exceeding 6 calendar months, and where there is reason to believe that the officer will ultimately be fit for further service for a further period not exceeding 6 calendar months. So the reason for that is that you get a year, and that's why national insurance in the private sector, you get a year sick leave from national insurance. But it is really 512 days. But 512 days for national insurance is a year because national insurance does not count Sundays.
Okay.
If you take out the Sundays, you get 512 days. So public officers are allowed extension of sick leave up to a year. But then it goes on to say that now if the leave is still ill, it says extension of leave may also be granted also on the ground of public interest unless otherwise directed. Such extensions shall be granted with full pay. So if you are still ill, they say it must be granted in the public interest, like for instance, an officer who has sick leave over a year, but he can still come back to work. And especially if he's a young person, you don't really want to pension him off, because if you are too ill and cannot work, you will get your pension immediately. So it's in public interest to keep you, to see if they can still rehabilitate you and get you back to work or not. They will have to pay you sick leave. If you have less than 20 years service, if you have 10 years service, but less than 20, they will credit you with 20 years service and pay you a pension based on 20 years service. If you have more than 20, then they will give you the pension commensurate with the years that you have. So the reason for and that is 524.2 that I just read. Where it will be granted on full pay in the public interest. These people refuse to do that. They then say they give you extension of sick leave on half pay. There is nothing in the law. And the thing is, the general order is no law. The general order used to be administrative rules made by the minister responsible for public service. But in December, on December the 31st, 2007, they became part of the laws of Barbados because the Arthur administration, one of its last acts before they got taken out of office, was to pass the Public Service Act. The Public Service Act deems the general orders to be made by the minister, and they're now binding on everybody. So if the general order said that this is what you got to do, the Ministry of Public Service or anybody else cannot disobey them. But they do it and they get away with it because they have done it for so long, and they owe millions of dollars. So they don't want to fix it because it is too much money to pay out, and the IMF didn't want that money paid out because that can cause some sort of problem. But people are going home sick, getting worse, and dying because they're not getting what is due to them.
Oh my goodness!
By law.
And no representation, no representation. And this is why, I mean, if you look at the flyer that we have, viewers, for the march on Saturday, one of the things that we are marching against is injustices to workers, right? The unjust practices meted out to workers. And those are things that, you know, when you are unjust to workers, let me tell you something, you know, that's something that God is against. That God is against that kind of thing. It's like you're oppressing the poor. You're boxing bread out of the people's mouth. And this is something that when this government, Heather and Mr. Franklin, when they were going into power, they went in saying that they care about the people, that they're going to take care of the people. You're going to tell me people are sick, and instead of following the law, all we have to do is follow the law. Follow the law. And based on what you are saying here, it's written there in law, Mr. Franklin, and the government is abusing the public servants in this country. The government. This is not even private sector. This is government not following their own laws. That is ridiculous. And that is why we, the opposition, we are on here tonight, and Mr. Franklin is highlighting it. You are the opposition. We have to stand up. Listen, if we don't open our mouth, if we go silent, Heather, we are just as bad as they are. We have to open our mouth. You have to open your mouth about this. It might not be happening to you, but it's happening to somebody down the road. Okay? So I had to push in a little thing there for Heather. You were saying something, Heather? You're muted.
Not here now.
Yeah, go ahead, Heather.
Yes. Since the other unions are not doing their duty to the workers with regards to this matter, has anybody sought either to complain to the ILO or have a case against the government? What is the thought? Is anybody thinking of doing anything? Are they too scared?
A lot of people are too scared to do anything in Barbados right now. But let me tell you, I like to source the information that I give you so that people will not think that I'm talking nonsense. Or because this sounds far-fetched. You know, sometimes people come to my office and I tell them things. They say, Mr. Frank, I can't believe that. I said, hold on a minute. I pull out the act. I said, here it is. But I didn't know. They did not know. And they genuinely did not know. So I like to source. If there's a law, I like to source the person. Read it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Read it. So, but since you don't have the general laws in front of you, I will read section. The Public Service Act. If you don't have that in front of you, I will read section 33(2). It says, subject to subsection 3. The general orders are from the 31st of December 2007, deemed to have been made under subsection 1 and shall remain in force until revoked by an instrument in writing by the minister under this act. The minister means the Minister of Public Service, right? And it says subject to section 3. Section 3 says, where any provisions of the general order is inconsistent or is in conflict with the code, meaning the code in the Public Service Act now, then the code or regulation shall prevail, and the general order shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be invalid. So they're saying to you that if there is a code that says otherwise, then the general order will stand down. But there is none. There is none. So you are supposed to give people extensions. They can't go to national insurance. And a lot of people know when they realize that they only get 3 months sick leave. National insurance, you can get a year, 312 days. But in the public service, they say, well, they're not giving you more than the 3 months. You can't go to national insurance. The government pay you anymore. What will happen to your bills? What will happen to your children that are going to school? What will happen to your mortgage? You know, these people don't care as long as they save money. They don't care who falls, who fails, who dies. They don't care. They just want to make sure that they want to keep their spending at a particular level, and they will inflict any punishment on the poor to do so.
So, Mr. Franklin, don't they have any lawyers in Barbados that deal with, labor laws? Who are those lawyers? Because I often say, when you see these kind of unjust situations, I say to myself, don't lawyers realize that that's why they went to law school? Where are those lawyers?
Well, I will defend them. I don't normally do that, but I will defend them. Public service law is probably a branch of the labor laws, right? And any lawyer who specializes in public servicing in England, you got cases every day. In Barbados, you get one every couple of months or every few years. lawyers can't live on it. So nobody's worried about it until such time as they get a case. Like, I'm not a lawyer, but this is what I do. So sometimes some lawyers will call me and say, okay, I have a case. What happens? I don't mind telling them. Some of them pay, some don't. But I don't mind telling them because it's going to benefit the worker in the long run. If you want to specialize in something, you're not going to specialize in something that will only give you 2 cases in your career or 3 cases in your career, because public servants are generally good people and we don't get into a lot of trouble. And the 1 or 2 that do, we have it at the union level adequately. So the problem is not the lawyers, the problem is the government. The government going to stop. The government has a whole battery of lawyers in the Attorney General's office who knows better. And they're trying to defend these things rather than, because they think that their job is to win a case. That's not their job. Their job is to get justice for the person who is before them.
Right.
But they're trying to win and fight against workers when they know within in their heart that the worker is right. But mind you, they are given instructions from above that say, you got to fight this case. There was one fellow, he was working in the public service. Everybody called him a maverick. And they tell him, you got to fight this case. And he got to go to court on it. The man said, but the man when I offer any money, you run around. And they say, here we tell you, you got to go to court. So he went to court. He didn't fight it. He won, but he went to court. They got rid of him from the public service because he was not being dishonest. I can't remember his last name though, but he stood half the judges in Barbados, or more than half. So when they crossed him, and everybody say he's mad. He's not mad. He's just passionate. But you know, he's gotten the air of everybody in the hierarchy because how dare you stand up to us?
Right. Now somebody's asking here, what about sick leave due to injury on the job? How is that handled in the public service? Peter Way.
Sick leave is handled like anywhere else in the public sector, private sector. If you are injured on the job, you don't expect to receive full salary and also sick leave. So the general order said that you're gonna pay back the money that they pay you. Okay? But when you're on sick leave, when you're injured, when you get injury leave, you get more money than if you were working from your national insurance. Because national insurance pays 90% of your salary as an injury benefit. But you don't get 90% of your salary when you work normally, because they take out national insurance and they take out income tax. But the government noticed that some will go under the last administration and they start taxing the national insurance benefits. As you get sick, they start taxing that too. But that's another issue for another time. Right? So you're required to pay in to the government and get but mind you, a lot of people do not know this, and a lot of people suffer. And this is for everybody who works, not only the public servant. If you are injured on the job, people say, "Oh, the company in paying the bills for me." The company is not supposed to. The company would assist you in getting to the doctor for the first treatment, because it's an emergency. They rush you to the doctor, but that is what the company should do. Thereafter, national insurance will pay your medical expenses if you got to get an MRI. Even if you are injured and can't walk and go get a taxi, national insurance will pay that. For whatever test and medications, as long as they are right out of the injury benefit, national insurance will pay them. So a lot of employers don't know that, and some employers who are humane go out there and spend money that they shouldn't, and they pay national insurance what national insurance should be paying. And people come and tell them, look, I work for you all these years, and he doesn't. No, he's not supposed to. He pays national insurance because the employers also pay national insurance contributions to cover your injury. So the employer will be paying twice. Well, not every employer, because government don't let them pay national insurance too often. But so everybody will be entitled to receive their expenses, MRI, CT scan, monitors that you're gonna walk with, anything, as long as the doctor you can show that it came out of the illness, but that arose out of the sickness benefit.
Yeah. Okay.
So but then you pay it back. Mind you, you pay back what they give you. So let's say if the government give you $40, but national insurance give you $45, you get about 40. You don't get back the full thing. Because you're paying them back how much there, because they will be benefiting from your illness or from your injury. Same thing with maternity benefit. You get 100% of your salary on maternity leave. But this is 100% up to the national insurance maximum. This is $5,120 a month. If you work for more than that, national insurance don't cover it. Your employer, if he's nice and think will cover that for you, or your medical insurance or whatever. But then you don't get 100% of your salary in your pay pocket. But some employers use this as a way to make money. So they say you want to bring your national insurance check. So you bring the national insurance check, and the employer give you what you normally get. They're profiting from your maternity benefit. So there are some scams who do that. I've seen it too many.
Wow, and you're unsuspecting, not knowing what is happening. Do you see how important this show is, guys? Let me tell you, this man is full of information.
Somebody is asking.
Yes.
Why are some government departments asking for the yellow sick leave paper opposed to the white one, even though you are appointed? And the yellow one should never go to the government.
Come closer to the mic, Mr. Kaz. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
The yellow paper that you get from the doctor should never go to the government. It should never go to your employer. The yellow one is for national insurance purposes only. As a matter of fact, years ago, the doctors used to provide you with two, an original and a duplicate. And they used to send the duplicate to the employer, and the original goes to national insurance. But that was a cost to national insurance. So national insurance said, let's get them one. If you can get them a certificate ready on your own stationery. So the doctor should only give you one yellow paper. That should go to national insurance. And the other thing that he writes on his own stationery, that goes to your department. So when people in the government service or anybody that's asking you for it, it's not their business. Because sometimes the doctors write, for instance, that you have a viral illness.
Right.
On the white one. But they don't want to say for the people in the workplace to know what the illness really is. Because we've had instances where people show up people's papers around the place, but that should be confidential. So you do not spell it out. Colds or upper respiratory tract infections or what kind of stuff you get them, you don't spell out anything now, because all the employer must know is that you are not fit for work. Why you are not fit for work is not his business.
So that's why. So that the yellow one would be more you would be more detailed.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So it is not their business. People not go to old Belgium malicious. They're just malicious. They like minding people's business. It is not their business, and the forms are not for them. You know.
So whether you're appointed or not, because this person is saying if even though you're appointed, so whether you're appointed or not, the yellow form goes to the NIS, and any other color, that's what you take to the employer.
Yes. And I'll
Okay.
tell you one of the reasons why, especially in the cases of injury benefits. If the government pays you your injury benefit, the money went during you're injured, yeah, pay them back. I'm not opposed to them getting back the money they paid. All right. But you must go on national insurance. You want to know why? If you are injured on the job and cannot work, let's say the year passed,
Right.
and you cannot work. Let's say the government pay for that whole year. And then you realize no that the government paying you anymore, you go to national insurance. National insurance don't know you were injured. So how are you now going to benefit from national insurance? They don't know. And after a while, let's say you were injured for 6 months. You were off for 6 months. And you will get your full pay. No problem. But if it goes over a year, then this disablement benefit kicks in. National insurance don't know that you're injured. So disablement benefit is paid at a higher rate than invalidity benefit. Invalidity benefit is if you are sick, normally sick without being injured on the job. You get 66 and 2/3% for illness, and then you get a small amount, can't remember what that is now, if it goes over the 312 days as invalidity benefit. But invalidity benefit, you get less money than if it is a disablement through an injury. So national insurance would not know. So if you come to national insurance after a year, haven't been injured, national insurance and your public officer, they will treat it as an invalidity claim. They won't touch that. Invalidity claim is not a pension. And I can source that again by asking people to write down this one and look for it. General Order 8.4.
General Order 8.4. Hear that, class? Write down.
8.4.
General Order 8.4. I know a lot of people are getting a lot of great information on here. What Mr. Sorry. I'm sorry about that. What I was saying. General Order 8.4. Go ahead. No, go ahead. You go ahead, please.
It says the pension which is paid to any former officer or employee in respect of public service, which first commenced after the 1st of September 1975, shall be abated by the amount of any old age contributory pension, underlying old age contributory pension, which becomes payable to that officer or employee by virtue of the provisions of the National Insurance and Social Security Act. So if you are in receipt of a pension from the government, and you reach old age contributory pension age, which is now 67, will be 68 soon. When you get 67 or 68, as the case may be, the pension from the Treasury is reduced by the amount you get for national insurance. That was done by the Barra administration in 1975 to stop people, just like what if you are going to cut your benefit. It says old age contributory benefit. And if you look in the definition for old age contributory pension, is the pension that you get at age 67. Now, if people are getting invalidity benefits, which is not an old age contributory pension, they are now taking away your pension from the Treasury, because if you are declared medically unfit, you start getting your pension from the time you become medically unfit if you have 10 years or more. But then you also know, because it's a lot less than you would normally get for your salary, you go to national insurance and you claim your invalidity benefit. And they decide all of a sudden the invalidity benefit is the old age contributory pension. You know, some people are 35, some people are 45, some people are 60. They do not yet qualify to have their pensions reduced. And the reason for that is simple. When you plan your life, you go to the mortgage company and you say you want a mortgage,
Mm-hmm.
and they schedule your mortgage payments to coincide with your retirement. But you get ill before you reach your retirement age. Somebody still has to pay that mortgage. Somebody still has to buy food. So
Mm-hmm.
what used to happen? The people used to use the old age, the pension from the treasury to pay one part of their expenses, and then the national insurance and related benefits to buy food. Some person not understanding. I just it was the Auditor General who wrote about it too, without reading without reading the law. So people jump up and keep a lot of noise about him, but he makes a lot of silly mistakes and don't fix them when they're shown up to him. So even though he goes up there and he holds the government up, some might say ridicule because the nonsense they do, he does unfortunately too. Because as a result of his writing without understanding, a lot of people now are not getting the invalidity benefits to which they're entitled. And people are suffering. People losing their homes.
Oh,
Because national
wow.
insurance is national, for all intents and purposes, it is an insurance. That's what it's all about. It's an insurance. So if you are good and you can work all the way down to 65, 67, or what it may be, and you don't get sick, good. But then if you get sick, you are covered by insurance. They're taking the insurance money now. And a lot of people, I'm not talking about one or two or three, have their pensions reduced. And I argue with people in the treasury, and they keep on saying, oh, the odd general doesn't make law in Barbados.
They're not following the laws. Actually, somebody here is saying, Valerie Hoyt is asking, should employers not place the laws in their offices? Because she's saying, I guess she's in New York. Are you in New York, Valerie? Somewhere in the US? She says, I think all staff should know the employment laws in Barbados. Here in the USA, our rights are posted in staff areas, and they have rules in the employee handbook. So, do we have that in the public sector? Are the laws placed? Yeah.
The general laws require it. But go into any department if government asking for general laws, you can't find one. Right? But I'll tell you something, and I'll give you one example. Many years ago, my house was broken into, and people stole everything but books. But don't read. You know, let's tell you
Everything but
everything.
books.
They carry the books. All of my books were still here. You know what I mean? So I don't. The people will not read. That's the biggest problem we have in Barbados. People not reading. One time, as when we were little children, we had branch libraries in country districts and stuff where the library would set up a little branch and people would go there. I remember ours used to be Tuesdays and Thursdays or something like that. And I go up there, I borrow some books on a Tuesday, and by
Uh-huh.
Thursday I back there, and people say, "No, you're reading too quick. You can't bring it back yet." But I read them out, you know. But people refuse to read, and because you don't read, even with the employees' handbooks and stuff, people get them and put them down. They don't read them. So I see that in a lot of cases in disciplinary matters. When I turn up, I ask them for the handbook.
Mm-hmm.
People don't remember they got one. Then they go home and search and find it. They don't read, and that's our biggest problem. We
Yeah.
don't read.
There is somebody here. I'm trying to. I don't know what they're doing. Somebody here. Sandra Blackman. I don't know if you're doing this by mistake or you're doing. But you are writing some comments here that we don't understand and keep filling up the comments. And I'm trying to. I don't know what is happening to this comment, and I can't get rid of it. So I just want to call you out. So can you stop, please, so that other we can read the questions that people may have and important comments. I don't know if you're unaware of it, but this is what is happening. Okay, so I'm just gonna say that to you before we block you if you don't stop. All right, thank you so much. Continue, Mr. Franklin.
You see, these are just a few of the atrocious things that government do to its own workers, right? And they know better. But the problem now is that they have, and I have shown it up to them, I've actually raised it with the Prime Minister. I even raised it all of the general ones. Because I lambasted him in the Senate one day and he saw me, asked me if I was over here cursing me, and I tell you, he looked, he realized, but he's too embarrassed now to go back and fix it and say, but he was wrong. And that's another thing. But you're wrong, says so.
Right. So
Nobody can kill you.
yeah, this if someone let me see if I can block it. I can do it from Facebook. I'm not sure what's going on. And whoever else is on, if they can help me to block this person, but they've come to create some problem and they're insisting on it. So what we're going to do until such time, we will ignore them and go ahead and think. Let me go to Facebook and see. Continue, Mr. In fact, it's 8:01, and I do have Vincent Smith on, so I'm going to ask him. He was supposed to come on to talk about the child protection bill.
Yes, I could always come back in.
You could come back in. All right. So okay, somebody has a comment here that says it is or should be the employer's responsibility to be transparent about all workplace laws and regulation. If that is not a requirement, the law should be changed to reflect that soon.
Well, see, the thing is, the worst employer in Barbados is the government. They do the most awful things to its workers. Like, for instance, you have a situation where government refuses to pay national insurance contributions to people and call them self-employed. The law sets out what a self-employed person is, or what a contractor is. But government they have clerical officers in some departments. They call them contractors. You have people cleaning the street. You call them contractors. You're not paying national insurance for them. That's dangerous, especially when you have people cleaning the street with cutlasses and stuff. A cutlass could let go of your hand, and go and stick somebody back or in the head or something. So that would be an injury on the job. But injury on the job, you don't get contractors, private contractors don't get injury benefits. So, mind you, I don't want to encourage anybody to go and injure themselves, but you are covered for injury benefit from the time you set foot on the job. You don't have a waiting period. Like, for instance, maternity, you have to be in there for at least a year before you can claim maternity benefit. For injury benefit, you have to have taken up the job. That's all you have to do. Sickness benefit, there's another thing. It used to be 13 weeks. I don't know how much it is now. But you have to be there for a time. Not so for injury benefit. From the time you start working, I'll give you a story. My brother used to work at National Insurance. We had this guy that could make some money in the crop. And the first 2 cases he cut, the college went through his foot, injury benefit. But now we have to determine how much money he earned to calculate the how much money he will be paid. So we call the employer, and the employer said, how much money earned what? The only got 2 kids.
That what?
He only got 2 kids. But he was just trying his best to find work, because he can't find a job, but he needed some money, so he said he can work in the crop. So I didn't have a cat kids before, and put the collars in his foot, and
they only got 2 kids.
We have a comment here that says, buy hard copies from the government printery. Unfortunately, the government printery is a mere shadow of itself. I am planning some training sessions with my shop stewards and stuff. So I went to the printery to get some laws of Barbados so I can use them as resource material. I went 2 weeks ago, and they tell me come back Thursday. I went the Friday 2 weeks ago, and they tell me come back Friday, which would have been come back Thursday, which would have been last Thursday. When they got there, they tell me they might get them done yet. The government printer doesn't even have paper. The government is starving the printery. You can't get laws. I went to subscribe to the Gazette. They wanted hard copies, and you can't get them. the government is neglecting everything. The Gazette is published, yes, but you can't get your hands on it because the print, we don't get them to print. That is one of the reasons why I have not seen the ones where the ministers, prime ministers, the backbenchers get these new, what they call them, these assistants, what do they call them these days? That is supposed to be published in the official gazette. Have not seen it yet. And and normally it should be published in the official gazette, because a law that is not published in the official gazette has no effect, you know. But these people are publishing nothing. But the past that says, they say, if you publish it online, it is published. And if you don't have access to online, then you're sorry.
Yeah. So they're making up, basically, they have been making up the rules and the laws as they go along. And we've been seeing that. I'm breaking the laws as well. I'm breaking the laws as well. Well, we have with us Mr. Vincent Smith, and I know, Vincent, you probably were listening to that session. So informative. I'm hearing stuff that I did not know. I didn't know was happening, and you know, for me, it is very sad to see public servants being treated this way in this country. And these are the things that we are to stand up for. And I know you're here to stand up on behalf of the children and the parents of this nation. Mr. Vincent Smith, can you just tell us a little bit about what it is that you do in Barbados before you go into speaking to us about the Child Protection Bill? Go ahead, please.
Well, I'm a teacher and I'm a Christian apologist.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I dare say an activist too sometimes.
Yes, you have to be. You have to be.
You have to be.
You will cross that path once you are protecting children.
Yes, wonderful. Now, can you talk to us about the Child Protection Bill and why this is so important? As you know, we'll be marching on the streets on Saturday at 10 o'clock, you know, against this bill in its present form. And so we want to hear from you tonight why this is so important, why it's so dangerous, and why marchers, why the opposition needs to come out on the people. The opposition needs to come out on Saturday.
Yeah, you need an opposition so you have robust discussion and you can thrash out so that the public can assess for themselves. If you trust that Barbadians are intelligent people, then have debate, have discussion so that people can make decisions for themselves. Otherwise, it's really brainwashing. If there's only one view and you're pushing that singular view and you can't have another view, you know, then it's really brainwashing. But if you really want people to have the freedom to think for themselves, give them the material, the information, allow them to discuss it publicly and learn for themselves. I think in today's world, there's a shift from parents' authority and parents' rights and move towards giving children more and more rights, more and more authority, more and more agency, and to govern themselves, right? And that's happening in the larger countries. It's happening in organizations like the United Nations and so on. And these international agencies, they want these changes to be enshrined in national laws in countries, right? So it is good that we have this bill now at this time, because it allows us to look at it and make sure that we address some of these changes or anticipate some of these changes that are going along internationally, and they come to us in Barbados, right? So we don't want to bypass that. As you can see within the bill, there are attempts to modernize the bill where it talks about, I think, technology and the abuse of technology to manipulate children, cyberbullying and that kind of thing, which was not in the previous documents before. So there's an attempt to modernize some of the offenses towards minors. But I think the most um, modern or the greatest modern abuse of children today is transgenderism. And the
Mm,
bill does not address that. And I think that is greater than a lot of these other offenses that will be in the law. Obviously, many of them rape and these other things are very offensive. But I think transgenderism, and I think what happened is that Barbadians are reading the bill at first glance and so on, and say, well, I find nothing wrong with this bill.
mhm.
But in having some conversation, you see the implications of some of the things within the bill, and you realize, yes, there are loopholes here or other things that may come up. So this is why we need to have a proper examination of the bill. There's no opposition in government when the bill is proposed to thrash it out and to point out all the problems with the bill. See, so that's why we, the opposition, then have to do that job and let the people be aware of what the bill, where the bill is falling short, the areas which it's lacking in, and we're falling short of protecting the children.
But you would say generally, I mean, we do need a child protection bill. We
Yeah.
do need it. It is that what we, as the opposition, as you're saying, somebody's saying the opposition are the people at this moment,
Mhm.
right? So we are looking at the bill and we are making proposal, making suggestions. In fact,
Mhm.
your organization, that I believe you sit the exec of that organization, Family Faith Freedom,
Yes.
Barbados, you have submitted a proposal to the government. Can you talk to us about that?
Um, well, I don't want to go into details of that
Into that.
proposal. And
Okay, no
there are
problem.
other groups as well that have just also done similar things and submitted proposals to um, government. But I want to point out some of the issues with the actual bill. Um,
Yes.
See why a proposal like that and other proposals are necessary, right? Um, First, if you look at the purpose that is stated, what is the purpose of the Child Protection Bill? As you said, there's a document before, and the Child Care Board agency and so on would execute those things. We've got also the Sexual Offences Act that would include offenses to minors and so on. So these existed before. So this is just really an update, a modernizing of previous legislation. And therefore, they're trying to pass this bill to cover that and cover the new modern issues that would arise. But if you are writing a bill and you say that the purpose of the bill, and I'll just make sure I quote it correctly,
Mhm.
uh, the purpose of this act shall be to censor, ensure compliance with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and all international instruments to which Barbados is a party with. Again, just reading that on the surface, it may not mean anything to you. But what you're doing is you're really saying Barbados is supposed to be a sovereign nation, but you're saying at the same time, look, whatever the United Nations tell us to do concerning our children, whatever charters they come up with, whatever policies they come up with, it is a done deal. We have no say because it says the purpose of this act is to ensure compliance with the United Nations, Human Rights International, and other international instruments to which Barbados is a party with. So this is, I think, a little crazy for someone to do. I mean, if we did this with our other laws, health laws, finances, and so on, so whatever the international bodies say, we will do, right? I think that's very, very a big ask of the Barbadian parents. Why you wouldn't do it with these other industries, but you would do it with the children of Barbados? Is it that, are you saying that the children of Barbados cannot be properly managed and parented by their parents? And we need these international bodies to tell us how to do this, right? So that is how I see this particular part. And this is why I propose, and I'm sure other people propose, that it would be stricken from the bill, that you cannot hand over your children to an international organizations like that.
Correct.
I heard you also briefly tonight on a case, and I think last night on a case on something to do with a teacher and a child. I didn't get all the details of it, right? But just overhearing that little bit, it shows that we have to be concerned in cases with adults and minors. And we have a situation here in Barbados where the Child Protection Bill that we're discussing references the Sexual Offences Act, right? It has a part in it that tells you go to the Sexual Offences Act, right? And within the sexual offences, within the bill, it says that any attempted or commission of any of the offences stated in the bill, in the Sexual Offences Act, all right? So the bill is saying it covers or protects the child from sexual offences. Right. And then there's some that are already established within our sexual offences laws, right? Offences to minors. But the bill is saying, is sending us to go and search the Sexual Offences Act to see what offenses concern minors. But there is an offense to minors that was removed from the act. In December last year, by a judge who sat in a case that was brought against the buggery law of Barbados. You see what I'm saying? So how could you, in the protection bill, reference a law that doesn't exist? So if that law no longer exists or protects the children, then there's a void within this bill that actually protects our children, claims to protect our children, but doesn't, from that particular sexual offense, which was stricken by a judge in December. You follow that?
Interesting, very interesting. I want to hear Caswell on that later on, but continue. I'm going to get Caswell on that later on.
I have a question before he goes on. It's significant to know that we were facing a law on the books which only came off recently, and it was with regards to the children being, what's the word now? The wandering laws that were on the statute books of Barbados since like 1830 something or 50 something, whenever it was. And it's only quite recently, a few months ago, that they were taken off. So this tells me that the context of Barbados on its own is completely being ignored, especially when it comes to children. And yet it is favoring an international organization's view on Barbados. It is as though we don't have problems that are facing the children of Barbados in particular. So why bring an international influence into our laws when we can't address the laws that are affecting children in Barbados? So something is completely wrong. We need to have a Barbadian perspective of laws for children.
And that's my earlier point, that we here in Barbados can manage our children and protect our children. We can raise our children effectively. And rather than look within we'll always look without, and we whatever the international people are doing, then that is fine for us. We don't question it. We don't. Um, and if you speak out against it, or if you say, well, you know, why are you imposing that on us? Then you will be labeled as, you know, other than just being a dissenting voice, other things. But the point is, look within, respect our people, respect ourselves and our abilities to parent our children and to do a good job, an excellent job at it. And consider that and have a discussion with the people when you produce this bill. So the Belgian people can look at it and examine it and give their input into the bill. And this is how you would access now the Barbadian people, and not just say, okay, let's just ignore the Belgians and go overseas and grab whatever they have and bring it in, right? And that attitude becomes a problem.
Yeah.
I have
Someone
another.
is, one
I
second,
have
someone is saying here that the prime minister is selling us out. And I see, I don't know if somebody is pretending to, but I think I see somebody from the government here, so they can let her know that that is what the people believe based on this child care, this child protection bill that we're being sold out. Continue, Heather, with the question that you have.
My question is, what are your colleagues, the fellow teachers who you are in contact with, what do they think of the child protection bill? How is it affecting them?
There are very few teachers that I hear speak of the child protection bill. I think, unfortunately, again, when people, I don't think a lot of Belgians have read the bill. I think a lot. I think a lot of Belgians don't know about the bill. That might shock you, but I get that impression. I've spoken to some people did. They heard something about the bill, but nothing significant, or they've not followed it up. A lot of them don't even know that there's some maybe opposition to the content of the bill. A lot of Belgians sometimes, unfortunately, sit down, and some of the teachers that I've spoken with aren't that interested in the bill unless it pertains probably to education rather than parenting, or something like that. If they can see that connection there. But no, I'm unfortunately, there's no great dialogue going on within the educational.
But that is where they are falling short, because if you don't read it, you will never know how it affects you. And in some cases, it doesn't have to mention the word education to have an impact on what is happening in a school. So I would encourage you to let them know that
In fact,
law
go
should
ahead.
be read.
Yeah. Even when you draw to their attention issues such as comprehensive sexuality education, that's for me, this is a matter for which the teachers should be very concerned. The IDB, Inter-American Development Bank, recently conducted a survey, which we
Yes.
all know was invasive and illegal. You can't ask like certain questions and so on.
Very
But
illegal.
go ahead.
I was just saying, very illegal. I'm sorry.
Right. So, and it was done through the educational system, right? And I know some teachers were highly offended by that. And again, um, they were drawn to that, right? And they had a voice and an opinion on that. But not many teachers are aware of comprehensive sexuality education and its dangers. And it is a part of our Caribbean curriculum. Some of the countries in the Caribbean, it's within the curriculum, and it can be taught. For those who don't know, CSE, or comprehensive sexuality, it is within something called the Caribbean Health and Family Life Education curriculum, right? Anyone can teach it at any time in the schools. In fact, there was a meeting, a CARICOM here in Barbados last year, to push it further in the schools. right? What happened is that it's been around for maybe more than 10 years in the Caribbean, but a lot of Caribbean teachers are traditional and they're not pushing it, you see? And they're getting put, so the CARICOM is getting pushed back. They're not, I don't know if they've taken money to get these things implemented or whatever, but they're not getting it, they're not getting the kind of, um, uh, in within the schools that they expected.
Yeah.
Right? So they're not meeting these goals. So the CSE is borrowed from the International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education, right? It's not, and there's a difference between sexual education and sexuality education. What I grew up being taught uh, in Barbados in schools was more sexual education, or sorry, sex education, not sexuality education. Sex education had to do with biology, anatomy, which were the organs, the sexual organs. You know what those were, and you know how they function. You know that a man and a woman, they came together, and that is where babies come from. They weren't dropped out the sky, or stork brought the babies. And babies came about because of intercourse. And then there was prevention and abstinence. Prevention, you're taught to use condoms. Abstinence, you're taught not to have sex until you're an adult or married or something. And that was the extent of, to some degree, what sexual education. Sexuality education has to do with your feelings, you're exploring your sexuality, exploring your sexual organs, uh, looking at how they operate between boy and boy, girl, boy and girl, and all of these different things. The pleasure that you may have from sex. So sexuality is all about those kind of other areas that Europe Europe's philosophy guides them more into the sensual part of sex education. Uh, well, back in the day in the Caribbean and in Americas, Latin Americas and so on, they focus on preventing sex and protecting the children. But in Europe, we're more interested in not that approach philosophically, but an approach where you can explore your sexuality and get more into it, right? So the whole philosophy that guided this whole shift in how sex education should be taught. So in other words, when you hear comprehensive sexuality, what we were taught before is outdated as far as they're concerned. This information is now more comprehensive. You get it? That's the idea behind it.
That's it. That's the difference. That's the difference.
Yes.
Now, someone here is saying, I know you still have a few more points thanks for those questions, Heather. That was quite interesting.
I have one more before he finishes.
Before he goes on, wait, someone is asking, so is the CARICOM taking guidance from international lenders who are pushing transgenderism and adult or minor sex? Is that what is happening in your based on your understanding?
It was a CARICOM countries, Barbados and other countries would have attended Inter-Americas conference. I think it was Mexico back in 2010 or something like that, in which comprehensive sexuality is being pushed. Comprehensive sexuality comes under International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education, which comes under United Nations agency, Children's Fund and Children's Agency. I can't remember the name right now. So I'm not saying that they're getting fund for this, but usually most of these things are tied with funds or grants to help them be executed within the countries, right? I can't say directly that there was any particular grant or funding associated with this particular thing, CSE, but usually these things are tied for motivation to get countries going and that kind of thing. Yes.
Okay.
The other question was, you mentioned sexual guidance and then sexual education, what was being taught in the past. But what was being taught in the past, was it broken? Was there a disconnect that it was not connecting to children in Barbados that you had to change to something else? Was
No,
there a
it's
rise, right? Was there a rise in pregnancies, whatever, that would cause a change?
yeah, no, well, the argument for this new comprehensive sexuality try to downplay that old approach. You see, so they will bring arguments like that it made no impact or no difference in the amount of pregnancies and that kind of thing, right? There was no real change. Comprehensive sexuality actually doesn't make a difference, but it fills children's mind in terms of numbers of pregnancy. As far I don't know any statistics, sorry, that
That's
indicates
fine.
if this is any different in pregnancies or treats pregnancies any differently. But what is certain is that it is trying to reach children from very young and teaching them about their organs and how to enjoy their sexual organs, teaching boys to enjoy their penis and to have pleasure from it, and to explore that with other boys or girls. And this is at primary school age. And they say the younger the better, so you can imagine children going to school, your primary school children, focusing on that. And sexual pleasure is so enticing and distracting that children are not going to learn well. You're going to school to learn math and English and the academics and all these other social studies and so on. But you're so preoccupied or wanting to get back home to look at pornography. And pornography is promoted within the CSE. I mean, people are showed books with pornographic positions, boys lying down with boys inserting at the back, and those kind of things from little childhood. So you can fill a child's mind with this. Trust me, that child is going to be preoccupied during the day with these kind of ideas, right? And that would entice people, I believe, more to encourage people more to have sexual intercourse than the other method, which was to try to prevent youngsters from having sexual intercourse until they're older.
Okay, thank you.
I'm laughing. It seems like either these are pseudonyms or the entire BLP. The 30 candidates are on tonight. I'm seeing Kerry Simmons, then I saw Mia Motley. I don't know if these are pseudonyms, but it's good that they're on
It is
because
very good.
they will
It is
know how much we are
wonderful.
tired of them, and we would like a little
We need
relief
to
from them. Right,
change.
as well. So we're so happy to see them on. I don't know if this is the actual Kerry Simmons or that's the actual Mia Motley, but we are happy to let them know that, you know what, this is not like one of her town hall meetings where she's asking and answering all the questions and bullying the residents, as Kamar said. But people are on here actually. If it is the prime minister on, this is one, Miss Prime Minister, where people are asking the questions and they're getting answered, and nobody's bullying anybody on here. So this would be good. I think Carrie Simmons could take that back to her and let her know that this is how, if she's still on. I hope she's still on and realizing how these sessions are to be done. But we're going to give you, going to let you come back, but Mr. Vincent Smith, and just continue. Just to we have another, I would say another 5 minutes just to share all the other areas, and then we will let you come back on later in the week to, because I think this is such an important. You see how many questions coming up, right? So go ahead again, and just take the next 5 minutes before we jump in. I see Kemar Stewart on, I see Maxine McLean on, and I know that the whole BLP's here. So it'd be good for them to be on, and let them know what time it is that we're ready to get rid of them. Go ahead for me. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
We also had in relation to the education, we had a grooming policy that came out earlier this year, and it had some big core values. In fact, it has values, but it never explained what the values mean to the people. So it's left to interpretation. And as many people as in Barbados live in Barbados, you can have as many interpretations of what one of those values could possibly mean. And there are about 7 core values of how our school children grooming grooming policy is the expression of gender, and that is one of those 7 core values. It was gender neutrality. And again, nobody knows what that means. You have to go and Google it or whatever. How could you put something of value, something that's so important? It's called a value. We value it so much, but no definition, no explanation of what the value is or how you should interpret this value. So gender neutrality tend to mean neither male nor female, right? That's in a nutshell, that's what it is. You're neither male or female. So when the government says it supports gender neutrality, is it saying that it supports the idea that children can be either male or female, or neither male or female, or don't have gender?
Or their bathroom.
But that bathroom is another fiasco. That bathroom sign. But that's the question here. Is government saying we support and not that children can be without a gender, and there's no such thing as a boy or a girl? Because when you say gender neutrality, you're right, you take the time to put it there, it means that you would have given it lots of thought and that you're going to defend it, right? So does the government clearly expect a boy to wear a girl's uniform and earrings and girls' hairstyles with bows to school? To school, right? And a girl vice versa. So the question is, if that happened, the government has to protect that boy because the boy is dressing in a gender but it's not gender neutral because it's actually a girl's uniform that the boy is wearing. What does gender neutral expression look like? In other words, what would the uniform look like that would match the boy's gender neutrality? In other words, it's very, very confusing. But in the same document, the document goes ahead and talks about a boy and a girl and girls' uniforms and boys' uniforms. So the document is advocating that there are 2 genders, boys and girls, and this is how girls are to dress, and this is how boys are to dress. And then at the top, it still talks about gender neutrality. You see? So they're probably hoping that by some magic, it would just bypass the Belgian public who's ignorant of all these fancy terminology. I think they just borrow stuff and stick it in there because sounds good, it's popular, and it would satisfy those LGBT persons who would probably quarrel and give them hell. So, but it makes no sense. It seems to be contradicting, the document seems to be contradicting itself. So we need a proper bill, right, that helps protect our children from this type of policy that tells our children they can be gender neutral and that there's more than one gender, more than 2 genders, because this is what it's implying to our children and to our parents and to the educators, that is, children don't have to be male or female, right? These are all the implications here. Again, somebody just reading it on the surface don't see a problem with it, but being in this area, you can see the implications in this area. And we can go on again.
Yeah, I want you to go on some more, but what I want to ask you about this grooming policy. You hear me? The grooming policy. I heard it. I don't understand what a grooming policy is. If it means that little children can walk about the place looking at unkempt as the Prime Minister when she appears in public and even at international fora. She's the worst dressed person in all these international events. When she comes to Barbados, she feels like she gets up, goes into the shower, wash her hair, and run right out. And I'm very serious. She's unkempt, and this is what she wants for everybody else. Because I see little children now walking around the place with their head looking like hers. Now, I told you some time ago that my grandson, when he started running that day, I said, I tell the Bible and said, start from the front. And we need to do some more of that. Because she's setting a very bad example. She needs, for instance, she has Jessica Odell, whatever my name is now, who by profession is a hairdresser, works for her. Let Jessica hold her and comb her hair. Let's do something with her. But she is not trying to impose it on the entire population. That's school children saying, but one, but something else about this grooming policy. What is your grooming policy and why was it necessary? I remember when I was back to school, we lined up outside and the teacher came and you had to hold your fingernails like that. And if there was a little dirt on it, you got a little thing on your fingernails, but you can come back tomorrow and like that though. That was a good enough grooming policy. You had your hair had to be combed. And now all of a sudden you where is this coming from? I do not understand it. And why would government having so much to do find time to waste with trying to tell the children you could trust the prime minister? I mean trust the prime minister. I mean have a grooming policy.
Grooming policy. Well, I know that we're at 8:42. We have a whole lot to cover.
One more question, Marcia. In light of the case that we heard about over the weekend, when a male teacher sexually assaulted a young boy, I don't know where it happened, a 12-year-old boy. How does the legislation, the Child Protection Bill, how can it offer protection to someone that it confuses about gender, having them to believe that they are not the sex that God intended them to be, that instead of being male, they are a male that another man must come and have sex with? What impact will that bill have on a child, or this child in particular, if we were in a world where, if the bill was already passed, what would be this child's rights under the law? I don't see this child as having any rights.
I think the bill is not going to allow adults to or anyone to harm a child or offend a child in any way, sexual way or anything like that. And it's not advocating that. It's not. The bill doesn't say either that that was the grooming policy we were speaking about, that addresses gender, but the bill doesn't address or says that people can be transgender or anything like that, right? But and the child protection laws, the protects you, the rape is on the legislation. Any adult that sexually abuses a child, whether it's two males or female, will still be a violation of the rape law and so on. So they will be dealt with for sexual offenses and rape and that kind of thing. But the particular one that that was being addressed was in the Sexual Offences Act. That the judge, what happened is that some people brought a case against Barbados, burglary law. They wanted to strike that down. They said that two men can or women can have the right to should have the right to have sexual intercourse, privacy of the woman. So, and that law was struck down as Section 9 of the Sexual Offences Act. But the judge in that same case went across in the same Sexual Offences Act and struck down Section 12. Now, Section 12 talks about a person who commits an act of serious indecency towards a child or with a child under the age of 16, or incites a child under that age to such an act with him, is guilty of the offense. Now, when you strike down that law of sexual indecency, it means then an adult, and let me explain what it means with sexual indecency. A serious indecency is an act, whether natural or unnatural, by a person involving the use of genital organs for the purpose of arousing or gratifying sexual desire. So you, in other words, you can rub up on a child. You don't have to perform sexual intercourse, right? Because that'll be rape. But you can rub up on a child, or you can do anything to stimulate sexual arousals of your organs and that kind of thing. Pet a child, kiss a child, whatever. So that law that convicted an adult for doing that to a child was now removed in December, and this is 10 months. 10 whole months has passed, and as far as I know, nothing has been put on the books to replace it. So our children are exposed for 10 months unprotected. And if the government really cares about protecting children, they would have done something about that. The Attorney General came out and said he was concerned that the judge strike down Section 12 concerning protection of the children. What does that have to do with buggery? It seems to do with more pedophilia, you see? So it makes you get suspicious as to linking buggery and pedophilia here. Why does the judge want to remove this pedophilic act? There seem to be more here to be discussed. But the Attorney General was expressed his concern, and we expected to hear from the Attorney General. We expected to hear from the judge, and somebody can tell me, but I've not heard anything from either of them. And as far as I know, I believe the children are still exposed. And if adults go and do that to children, they probably wouldn't get locked up.
I want to chime in here on that, because I think the judge, in both instances, the one with buggery and the one with the serious indecency, the judge overstepped her bounds. Those were things that Parliament should fix. But let me tell you why Parliament didn't fix them. Run away?
Why?
I'm not going to say because they got a lot of those people in Parliament. I'm not going to say that. I am coming down strictly on the fact that Barbados is still a Christian society. We got a lot of Christians out there. And the government wanted that gone. They wanted that legislation gone, but they didn't want it to be seen that the government did it, because they would then get the Christian backlash. But a compliant judge, I think, exceeded, because these are things left for Parliament. Judges don't make laws. This law was constitutional all along. It didn't suddenly become unconstitutional. The Constitution didn't change to make it unconstitutional. As a matter of fact, we had a similar case in Trinidad, and it went all the way to the Privy Council. And the Privy Council said, that is for the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Judges shouldn't get involved in that. Now, what is so different with the different laws in Barbados and in Trinidad? I believe the Privy Council was correct when it said, "Oh, that is for Parliament. We don't legislate." Now, I can understand where the legislation is bad and it infringes the Constitution for the court to point that out and to say, well, we strike it down. I've actually fought the case going back a lot of years until finally a judge came and said that the prison officers amendment back in 1982 was unconstitutional. So I have no difficulty with the judge's ruling that it was unconstitutional, but striking down law that was good law all along, that you cannot tell me or show me. I want to see the decision where the judge reasoned out why it is unconstitutional. The Attorney General himself should have appealed that decision, because it would appear that the judge was legislating. Judge is not supposed to legislate. Parliament is supposed to legislate. But this was legislating for Barbados, and the Privy Council dealing with it in that case says, no, that's for Parliament. So how come it's so different between Trinidad and Barbados? I do not understand why. And the judge then went off on a tangent of her own and decided that she's also going to spring out the serious indecency. You know, the Attorney General is the person responsible for the laws of marriage. As a matter of fact, the case would have been against the Attorney General. And if he didn't like it, are you saying, well, he's concerned, he should have appealed? Say he's concerned, don't cut it because he has the remedy. He can go to the Court of Appeal and to the CCJ then if he's not satisfied. But they're all satisfied. They wanted it gone and it's gone. That is why the people of Barbados should want them gone, and they should be gone soon because they are not working in the interest of Barbados and Barbadians, and they're not working for our privilege, certainly. They're not working for the people of this country in general. So I don't want to hear them coming up with these platitudes and stuff saying not it. Fix it. Because they could either then said, look, we're going to either appeal it or we're going to fashion another law that would not be infringing on the Constitution. They can they rush the parliament and pass all kinds of things. 10 months is too long.
Too long. 10 months. The Attorney General said that they were going to fix it. And every time people mention it, people would hear all those that still drink the Kool-Aid. They said, "Oh, they're going to fix it." It's 10 months. What do you say about that? But look at the NIS and the pension bill. How fast that run through. It was even wrong, incorrect, mistakes, blunders. And it go right through the child protection bill. They're trying to pass it fast. But 10 months. Belgians, wake up. Remember who we are. We are the opposition. We are asking the questions, the hard questions. Thank you so much, Mr. Smith, for coming on tonight, and we'll be in touch and hope you can drop by again. Right, but this has been very good. Thank you so much, sir. God bless you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right,
Yes. Well, we are happy for we're happy for all of those of everybody who's joined. And one of the things I want to say to people is that, listen, people can try to bully you in many ways. People want to try to build, whether it is that came on or it is a pseudonym. It is just some people get nervous and don't want to speak up. No, speak your mind. We are the opposition in this country. We put them there, and speak your mind. This is the time to speak. Write what you need to write in this comment and speak your mind. If they're truly on, they will be able to read it. We welcome everybody on because that's good. It's good if they're on. Do not be intimidated at all, right? I know Miss McLean is coming on. I don't see her camera on at this time. Okay, our camera is on. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Stewart. How are you?
His
Good evening, Marcia. Good evening, everyone. Caswell, Heather, Maxine. Good evening to the audience.
Listen, with the two of you on here, they're going to think it's a DLP show because that is what they say, but it wasn't intended. But
I do not hide my political affiliation, but anybody who has listened to me, well, before I got into politics, I spent about 10 years as a moderator. I speak to issues that impact Barbadians. And so if I'm asked to speak from a political perspective, fine, I certainly will draw on my tenure as a minister of government when I speak to issues, but so your show is, but I don't know what you should.
But you know what?
LP.
But we shouldn't, Caswell, we definitely should not include members of the BLP. So Kerry Simmons, if it's truly Kerry Simmons that's on, listen, you can come right on here as well. It's open to all of Barbados. This platform. This is the voice of the opposition. Okay, so you can come on and let us deal with you directly. All right. If you intend to, you can come right on here. When we're ready, we say all kinds of things about the DLP for real. All right. So you can come on. Go ahead, Caswell.
Marcia, when they try to discredit me, they said that I'm still a BLP. But if Kerry Simmons is on, he's still a DLP too.
So hold a minute. So Kerry Simmons was a DLP?
Yes, he was.
Mia too.
Mia was a member of the
Democrats.
Mia, I don't have Mia listen. Mia, you listening? You're a DLP too.
Listen to me. Mia spoke on Philip Gray's platform against Ronald Toppin She was on the truck. They got pictures of Mayor. Mayor was a young Democrat. But what going on is the reason why Mayor is no member of the Barbados Labour Party is that you remember in 1986 there was a 24-3 result. The Democrat Party got 24 seats. The BLP got 3. Henry Ford, David Simmons, and Wayne Arthur. When the Barbados Labour Party was looking for candidates, they were looking for 24 candidates to run in the 1991 election. The BLP only needed 3 candidates because their people were coming back. Mayor wanted to run against Leroy Brathwaite, and Sandifer wouldn't have it. So she found something philosophical anything about her. Her philosophy was, I want some players to run. So she ran against Leroy Brathwaite and lost. And then in 1994, then she won. So so I don't know what we're talking about. All of these, a lot of these Dems changes the bees. So I don't know what people complain about. Mayor was the bees who fought for Barbados, the Democratic Labour Party. I don't know about if I saw the if she comes on, no, looking good. She, Kerry, Timar, all them.
So it would be all them. So Mia, if you're listening, you can come right on. Kerry Simmons, you can come on. We will send you the link so we can talk to you directly. Because one thing on here, listen, we're going to speak our minds. All right. So Miss McLean, you're on. What's on your mind tonight? What's on your mind tonight?
Well,
and then we're going to go to Kima.
Yeah, well, very quickly, I joined, and you were talking about school children and education. There are two. When you look at government's budgets, there are 2 elements which account for the vast majority of budgetary funds. That is education and health. And I want to speak to health because I saw a video circulating on the weekend, and there seemed to have been a blackout at the accident and emergency. This
Right. Yes.
administration has spent some additional, well, several millions of dollars expanding and so on. And this is where I will put on my DLP hat now. Okay, so nobody can. I am telling you, and if you don't want here, you can shut me off, and I will go and quietly listen. But it sent me back to do some research. In fact, I didn't have to go too far because I was happy to see that there was a press statement put out by the General Secretary of the Democratic Labour Party. Now, my biggest concern, if you drive up alongside the hospital from Refuge, from Voice of Barbados, you see I'm dating myself and saying Refuge, Voice of Barbados, and you come up there, you would see there was a section in the hospital, the wall was built up. About $16 million would have been spent on some major improvements, including backup power, and which can run the hospital. So my concern when I saw that, apart from my concern about the welfare of patients who might have been on all kinds of life support and so on, why is that system not working? Because, and I would say this, I would have sat for 10 years as a moderator on the call-in programs, and back in 2005, 6, 7, every day people call complaining about hospital. Now, we have one major hospital in Barbados. And therefore, whether you are a DB nobody party, you don't support anybody, whatever the case may be, we have to be concerned as citizens about our health care. And so that is my big problem. What is happening? And I would say that since we don't have a lot of time, Marcia, I would come back sometime and I would share with you the range of things that would have been put in place to improve healthcare. And if you look at it, and I would say to anybody who is objective, who has been paying attention, particularly to the voice of the people using the media that they have, the call-in programs, you would have heard, as I said, daily calls. Those things pretty much went down substantially, and a lot of them disappeared. And here we are every day hearing about catastrophe after catastrophe. You don't have supplies. I mean, that can happen periodically, but all over your hand, you don't have supplies. You can't get appointments. I personally had to pay for a Barbadian to get cataract surgery to make sure that this woman did not go fully blind. And this was because every 6 months she was having an appointment to see the ophthalmologist at the hospital postponed. This is the first time in public. Well, I think I might have mentioned it to some people, but I was afraid for her, because here was somebody who was otherwise independent, taking care of herself as a retiree, but losing her sight and could not even get the appointments to make sure that the cataract surgery could be scheduled. But furthermore, somebody who suffered from glaucoma was not getting her regular checks to make sure that her glaucoma was under control. So my concern is what exactly is happening at the hospital. And I would stop here and I would say the other thing that concerns me is, apart from that situation, and somebody needs to tell us what's happening, why aren't they utilizing that? Why wasn't it hooked up to actually emergency? Is it working? Have they been maintaining it? I want to understand something about the staffing situation at the hospital. It is my understanding, and I can't call people's names, but I can tell you I checked my facts. In a less than a 2-month period, 5 consultants resigned from the QEH. And that's frightening. Because when you look at the mix of services or specialties, have they been able to replace them? What is happening to their patients? And I will touch on one condition that I know about. And I touch on it because the first case of lupus I knew in Barbados was my late sister, Monica. She lived with lupus for over 40 years. And the concern is what is happening to those patients. I have talked to some of them, and they are concerned that in the absence of the person who looked after them, they are having difficulties. So I think that one of the things that we have to do, I notice this person saying we're talking without taking action. My action in this, I think, in relation to the hospital and to health, is to highlight to people what is happening and demand answers, because we cannot walk into the Ministry of Health, nor can we walk into the QEH or any geriatric hospital and tell somebody what to do. What we can do is highlight to Barbadians where the slides are taking place, where problems are occurring, where things that were solved before are now allowed to fall back into problems again, and to ask the officials. We now have 2 medical doctors as 2 ministers at the hospital. The question is, what exactly is happening? So I know that we have to act, but where the public is acting by paying the extra levies and so on that is imposed. Kimar probably can tell you something that what we want to hear is, how are these funds accounted for? And how are they being spent? So I think that part of what you're doing is highlighting these problems. I see a note here about eye surgery. We were able, and we know, as I would say, Marcia, and I have no difficulty saying so, the DLP was able to open that eye clinic, and we got healthcare in respect of eye surgeries back on track. Those things fell by the wayside. I heard Dr. Brown saying that they're gradually getting them back there, but perhaps that is happening partly because persons like myself have reached out to friends and family to help people who couldn't help themselves. But I'll stick a pin there because I think Kimar may want to say something, and he's probably been waiting longer than I have been to share some of the things that he wants to share. But we need to dissect the health situation, and more specifically, the QEH and the care of the elderly in Barbados. And I flag those things. I can offer solutions. The solutions I would offer were the ones that we had put in place over a 10-year period. They can go back and see what has been allowed. I see somebody, Carrie Simmons, said DLP. Yes, because these people have gone out there and put in people's heads nonsense about the last decade. But if I have time after Kimar speaks, I will come and list a whole set of initiatives that took place between 2008 and 2018 that had the QEH. And I will tell you, I was the person who chaired the selection committee for the hiring of the former CEO, Dr. Dexter James, who was gotten rid of and replaced by somebody who could not walk in his footsteps. I know the young lady personally. I don't have anything against her, but she was out of her depth. I will stop there for now, Marcia.
Marcia,
Yes.
Maxine was speaking about the A&E that went to total darkness the other night, and also the generator. Remember the last night I was asking about what happened to the generator, because you know public workers running got a generator, and you can continue working if the power goes off. But you know what crossed my mind? The A&E was refurbished, and a lot, when they finished, somebody when they opened the heavens, they opened the roof, the A&E too, and the water was coming in. So you might have a problem where the A&E might not be able to hook up to the generator because it might blow up. The water still in there. It still got water in there.
Look at, I'm laughing at your joke, and then I see, look on the screen, a movie was showing in the air, and hence the lights out. It was a horror mystery. Listen, no, I don't, there's nothing that they can do to defend this hospital situation. These are very good questions, I believe, that Miss McLean is asking this evening. Very good questions. Let me just go over to Kimar. We're going to go back and forth on this tonight, right, Heather? Let's go over to Kimar. Kimar, good night, sir. Good night. What's on your mind? What's on your mind? It seems like this guy this minister Kerry Simmons is still here. So what you want to say to him?
Well, we just say good night to Mr. Simmons, and we wish him the best for his bid to become the next BLP leader. After the Prime Minister has resigned, declaring that this is her last term, so we wish him the best in his journey.
How you doing?
Okay,
Well, I guess I could be the referee on that one. I don't have a punch to put back in there.
No, okay, maybe you were gonna DLP running the BLP got another one.
Well, strange things, huh? But what's on my mind? I was here reading a book today, and I landed on a specific chapter, given all that you all were discussing this evening, and it asked, is freedom to blame? And it said that many around the world are beginning to wonder if the increase in crime and lawlessness has anything to do with the tremendous freedoms in which citizens of the world enjoy, and that many are inclined to think that the great liberties of a constitution and a country and the provision of a country's constitution have been progressively abused by every succeeding generation since the early 1960s. And sociologists, economists, preachers, pastors, they all believe that the unrestricted freedom without morality is pushing the world into a dangerous extreme. And we're seeing that play out in Barbados. And the book went on to say that furthermore, the recent increase in the number of what we call bizarre accidents, killings, murders, shootings, robberies, fleecing of governments, that this could all be a part of the undue, let's say the undue quote unquote freedoms that we had. And these so-called freedoms are now are being attacked by governments, because governments believe that people have too many freedoms, and that is why they are becoming extensively lawless. So they have to take away some of your freedoms in order to bring society back into line. And it went on to speak about how government, as a civil authority, needs to have limits on them as to where and how far they could push the people. But Since Barbados has voted in a government 30 law, our political system has allowed this particular government to operate as a de facto dictatorship and has pushed past the constitutional and civil rights that Barbadians have, even suspending those same constitutional rights during the season when they employ this Emergency Management Act to take away the rights of the people. I had us under emergency for over 2 years unjustifiably. There was no reason to have us under that emergency. They attempted to mandate the joke. We were spoken to in some very disrespectful ways. Um, we were basically given the old supermarket bag, chicken back, chicken wings. Uh, they closed down all the small shops, all the small supermarket. The COVID unit was running in poor people's establishments and shutting them down, while leaving the bigger ones open. Only the big tour companies were getting work during that period.
I want to correct you here, Kate Mara, because you said they shut down all the small shops. They didn't shut down all the small shops because the ones in St. George's were left open. So go ahead.
So, so societal favor were given to some over some. We even had disparities in how the law was being applied to citizens and at different strokes for different folks. We even had Caswell and an attorney bringing a lawsuit against the government for trespassing on the rights of Barbadians. We had an election in the midst of a pandemic. In the midst of a pandemic, we had a general election. We had a by-election first. There wasn't a need to have a by-election because Glenn Clark didn't need a good candidate to be in the cold at that age to put a sellout union leader in the seat. That didn't need to happen. We didn't need to have a general election in the midst of COVID, bringing out the lowest electoral turnout in Barbados. So we have a minority government with excessive power and are abusing the vested power that the people would have put in them by stepping on our constitutional rights, even suspending our own independence constitution, and they still have not brought a republic constitution. They changed over the office of Governor General into presidency. I would think that before you do that, you would have gotten a constitution. But we did everything backwards, and I heard Kazo say countless times on the show that he has lost confidence in the judiciary, and the way how the power has caused some drunkenness among elected officials, we can see that our judicial system, even during the midst of COVID season, where the laws were unfairly applied to people, we can see that the government overstepped their boundaries significantly. But even having the army reaching into our everyday lives, even having the prime minister overreaching everybody, stepping past the cabinet, stepping past the parliament, stepping past every structure and procedure put in place for Barbados to become a de facto dictatorship. So what's on my heart really is that when governments become corrupt, when power becomes excessive, where the elected officials no longer are reasonable men in law, I think people power and the power of the citizens marching, protesting, using whatever constitutional power that the people have to remove governments, even agitating and mandating the power of recall for MPs who we feel no longer deserve to be in parliament, going to the town halls and speaking to emergency Barbadians doing that, coming on the Marcia Week show and speaking to Barbadians, enlightening them to the issues. And lastly, I'm seeing, not enough for my likings yet, but I'm seeing persons of all different religious persuasions, like the Christians, the Muslims, the Rastas. We're seeing a coming together in Barbados unlike before, where it has become now the people versus the government. And without the help of traditional societal organizations, at one point in time, the rallying of people was left a political party. Whereas if the Barbados is a party in power, the Dems will usually set it up. If the Dems are in power, the Bees will usually. But now we are moving past that phenomenon in society, and the people of themselves are standing up and fighting back against oppressive governance. So we're seeing a change in societies. Uh, Once upon a time, the church would have been out there leading the charge, particularly on some moral issues. But that has not been the observation so much throughout the last couple of years since the government came in. Uh, at one point in time, we could have had schools, teachers, principals, civil servants who cared for the persons under their control to be standing up and pushing back against tyrannical governments. But we're not seeing that because the governments are using whatever power they can to subdue the voices of people, even if it's cut their pay, even if it's using direct finance to dock your pay, uh, just basically getting you fired, taking away whatever income they can. So what I really want to get at here um, is the new order of things in Barbados and the new order of things throughout the world, the new order of things in Africa. We're seeing major coups, military coups, and the removal of all power structures and all establishments throughout the world, and the rising up of a new, what I call a new social order. And we're seeing governance being transferred away from specific political elite uh, over to international organizations, but then the people are rising to take governance back from these organizations and bring it back domestically and bring it back home and removing what you would call sellout corrupted leaders.
Powerful. That's a powerful powerful observations there, Kimar, and and this is why this show exists. At the top of the show, we were talking, Heather, about the people being the opposition, and that something like this, a forum like this, allows a lot of us to be educated on the issues, and I say us because that is what is happening. I learned so much already tonight. We're not finished yet, and I tell you, I write so much and I'm learning so much. So what you're saying, Kimar, is so important, because now it's not about any party, it's the people. It's the people that are rising up, the people who are rising up, and the people who are the opposition. And it is the people who are going to come out on Saturday at 10 o'clock. Everybody invite, if each of us invite, like personally call 5 persons and invite them, right, to come down to the march. We are the opposition. We've got to stand up. What's the mirror image that we have of ourselves? We're going to let people continue to bully us? We will continue without a voice? No. Normally in parliament, you, for all of these bills and all of these policies, you will hear a shouting, you will hear a contradictory voice. Then you will hear opposition. We don't have that. Everybody's singing from the same sankey. Now, we, the people, we are educated Bajans, and we are standing up and we're speaking. So if it is the true people that are on from the parties, they will understand what the show is about. And I saw a note there where it was saying that the name that says that they're Kerry Simmons, because I don't know if it's true. They want to get the link. We've put the link in there because we would love to have a face-to-face, as close as possible conversation with you. So if you want to you can come right on. You come right on. I'm going to post the link again. It says StreamYard. That is so you, Kerry Simmons. Look, it's right there. If you're on YouTube, it's right there. It's a lot 9:20. It came in. Come in. come in. Anybody can, you come in and talk and say your piece. But let me go back to Miss McLean about this hospital business. There's so much that Kimar said that there that we need to unpack. But I want to get into the hospital issue because we had advertised that we will be talking about that. Can you share a little bit more with us about that, Miss McLean?
Okay, well, let me say that if when we, let me go back to as I said, I am speaking now as a former cabinet minister. In fact, before I even joined the cabinet, in as I indicated to you in 2006, and I stopped doing the program in 2007 when I agreed to assist the late Prime Minister David Thompson in his preparatory work for the 2008 election, and I made that very clear. I would have done I would have hosted the call-in program for nearly 10 years, about 10 years. And one of the problems that was on everybody's mouth was a hospital. So I will contextualize what I'm saying. A group of us got together, led by a patient advocate. I didn't ask her if I could call her name, but I would tell you in the future I would ask her. But she got together. We were linemen as we do as a group of friends, and she said, "Look, we need to come up with something to rescue the QEH." And so for the person who talks about a talk shop, we were talking, but we spent months and months undertaking some serious research. We did focus groups. We had doctors, patients, family members, a whole people who knew administration, and came up with. And in fact, we gave the information to the hierarchy of the DLP, and they took it fully on board. And the whole notion of rescue the QEH became a reality. At the end of the day, what we did was to take a lot of those recommendations and put them in place because of the problems that we saw continuing. What that led to, by the time this administration came into power, that we had solved a number of problems relating to the drug service, the energy problem, the electricity problem. We had done introduce a whole set of things. And as a result of that, the hospital would have received a level of accreditation, new staffing, and all of these things. What has happened now seems to be an almost complete reversal of a number of major initiatives. As I said, we have power problems again, clearly, from what we saw circulating. The patient care seems to have fallen through the cracks. People continue to complain about repeated cancellations. One of the things that I did not mention, but I was reflecting as I listened to Kimar on some calls to the call-in programs, because I still do listen and I've called periodically. And people are now talking about introduction of new fees and so on. Now, I don't know what is happening. My problem is that we are not hearing from the officials at the hospital and the ministers, particularly the main minister, Dr. Walcott, Mr. Walcott. I think as a surgeon, Mr. Walcott is probably the term you use when you have been elevated, and he was long time a surgeon. And this is his second iteration as Minister of Health. And so he would have been Minister of Health when some of these problems were happening back in 2006, etc. We need to hear from them what is really happening. I heard Dr. Brown mention a couple of things. They're trying to get things up to speed. But what we did not hear was a reasonable explanation or information on what is happening. What really seems to be happening, Marcia, is that the management. Now, I am a management, that's my background. I don't like to use the word specialist because a management specialist, let me put it, I've trained in it, I taught it, I practiced it for decades, so I guess I can call myself such. I am not seeing the quality of day-to-day management at the hospital. This administration went, as I said, they got rid of the CEO, who was a man with a PhD in hospital administration, excellent experience, and tested and proven at the QEH, and replaced him with a young woman whose experience was nothing close to his. In addition to that, they moved and created a position called executive director. And let me explain what that is.
Executive chairman.
Executive chairman. You've taken a chairman of a board and fused or merged the CEO position with the chairman. Now imagine if you are not the I mean, as a chairman, you are working with a qualified CEO and so on, and a management team. But now you are heading that management team.
Mm.
And from what I can see, and as I said, I know the young lady, she was in too deep in the water. It was above her head. I'm not sure where she is now, but my understanding, she is no longer at the hospital. So the question I would want to ask now, what exactly is happening in terms of the management of the hospital? And if the hospital could function without her, then that really says something. But from what we're seeing, it is not functioning as well as it should. Patient care is compromised. Staffing issues are there. Let us hear what is the situation with key specialties at the hospital. How are they solving them? What have they been able to do to fill the gaps created by those people who have resigned? So my concern is at the level of operations, at the level of systems, at the level of staffing, and all of these things coming together in relation to patient care, we are having a problem. And this is compounded by what happened during COVID, because one of the challenges that we saw during COVID, remember, there were some protocols put in place, and ultimately, at the end of the day, patient care, people who went outpatient care, persons who went routinely for matters relating to ophthalmology, general medicine, things like diabetes and those kinds of things, those
Dressing.
the
Express.
dressings and whatever, people found themselves not being able to get their routine treatments. Consequence of that, people's conditions got out of control, which means that you became more ill. How have they been able to redress that? And I say that within the context of a situation which we had to address as well. We have in Barbados, thankfully, a system of assisted, what we call assisted provision of critical medicines to children and to adults for specific kinds of medical conditions, hypertension, diabetes, etc. Now, I can tell you that when we came into office, one of the things that was a problem, the drug service was spending millions of dollars, and we could not properly account for the usage of that medicine. We realized that there was a lot of wastage. Let me put it very bluntly and quickly, because time is not on our side. There was a lot of wastage. That was streamlined. I even remember some of my colleagues taking on the Minister of Health and asking him if he was crazy to put the kinds of measures that he had put in place, because they were so stringent. But very quickly, he was able to demonstrate that even though he was able to slash that bill maybe by as much as $10 million, you would have found that in fact it was, I was looking because I had the number written down. He was able to slash the Barbados Drug Service bill from $25 million to 13 million within 2 years, almost 50%. 25 is 12.5, and he was able to slash it to 13 without compromising people's health. There were a lot of inefficiencies. Now, my concern is when you have a situation where people's conditions are probably not being best managed, and they find themselves having to rely on the medication and so on, and then you have difficulties because, from what I'm understanding, well, apart from the fact that they may not necessarily, the hospital and the drug service may not get all the resources it needs, there is an issue of international shortages of medicines. And in that case, Barbados is not going to be prioritized as a small country. And so if we're going to have challenges getting the correct medicine in here, and people are sicker because their conditions are not being as well managed as they ought to be, we can see almost a double jeopardy situation. And I would also say that something else that I'm not seeing enough of, and it's certainly, and as I said, I am using comparators because I know what was done. When we came into office, one of the other things that we figured we had to address was the matter of preventative health. And there were some initiatives to get people into exercise and so on. And so I see some programs in swimming and so on for LD, etc. But I would want to see greater efforts made to address the whole issue um, of preventative health, because there, I mean, there's so much. I mean, I look at the drug service as one. I look at the issue of electricity. I look at scheduling. I look at staffing. I will say this, and Marcia, it hurts me to say it because I lost a nephew at 40 years old. And I will say this to you. He went to the hospital. He had a heart condition. And between the time he was admitted to the hospital and finally was probably able to get on a ward, he would have been a few days in accident and emergency. One of the problems we have at the hospital, and has been an ongoing problem and one that has to be tackled, do not get ill on a weekend. Because in most instances, if you get ill on a weekend, you will not see a consultant until the Monday or during the week. And I'm not guessing. I had my mother at the hospital. I had my father at the hospital. I had my brother Wendell, the thing that everybody knows, at the hospital. He died 23 years ago, but I still remember, when his period of illness. I had three brothers of mine who would have had to go through that hospital, a sister, my parents. So when I talk about the hospital, I am not being political, as people would like to talk. When we're talking government and so on, that's politics. I'm not being partisan political. I am saying that from the perspective of somebody who has had to interface with the hospital, I have seen the good and the bad, and I'm now seeing what I call the worst. What we need to have at the hospital is a patient-centered
It's
institution.
true.
What we
It's
have
true.
at the hospital, and this may be a problem for the current ministers, we have an institution where a lot of doctors tend to want to dictate. So it is more doctor centered sometimes in terms of how things are done. And for all the doctors who I know, and you don't like what I say, prove it otherwise, or let us talk about how we can make it patient centered. So when you see certain decisions made, if we don't have that focus, why is it that you have a patient admitted on any and cannot see a specialist, even in the greatest of emergencies, till after the weekend? And it has perhaps to do with something with the terms and conditions of employment. But my biggest concern, as I said, I've seen it, I've seen the decline, I've seen 10 years of work to make that hospital work. And I'm going to call the name of a minister now. Donville Innes was one of the best ministers of health we had. And I will call his name because he's my friend, my neighbor, my former student, my former member of parliament. And we used to
Careful, is Caswell friend too. Caswell friend. Just I'm teasing
Caswell is
Caswell.
my friend too. Caswell and I are friends as cooperators for decades. And Mr. Innes was my friend and is my friend, my neighbor, and so on. But the point I'm making, I saw him commit to making those changes, and they were done. What we are seeing now is a reversal of all of those things. The Queen Live Hospital was accredited. We went through a very rigorous process of accreditation, and it was allowed to lapse. Thankfully, I see something the other day saying that they had gold accreditation or whatever. But tell us, what is it that occurred between when they took office and when they got back this accreditation? Too much is happening. I remember going to visit my parents in the hospital, or my siblings, over the period of time before we took office, and seeing boxes and boxes of equipment in the corridors. And you know why they were there? The electricity supply was dodgy. That was solved. And here we are again with this situation in any of our places. So when
But
you
how
see that,
you said it was resolved. The electricity situation was resolved. Supply was resolved. In what way?
the if you drive past, I am not I will a major backup supply power supply. You know, you have
Mm.
generators at home. The equivalent of that for a commercial operation like a hospital was put in place. If you drive up, remind me of the road, River Road, coming from VOB and up River Road to the junction of Gemmots Lane, where the roundabout is. On your left, before you get to turn the corner, you will see a wall erected. Right behind there is a massive structure. That's the backup supply. That's the backup power. Now I don't like to speculate. I share the information I know. But somebody asked me to ask the question: is it true that parts of it were stolen? I don't know, and I would hate to think so, because if you
You
have
mean parts of the backup
from the
generator?
yes,
Uh,
somebody said to me something was stolen. I don't know,
it's
but I
alleged
don't.
that parts were stolen.
That's what somebody said. I said, but I would hate to think so. The point is, there's a system that should be able to support that hospital in emergency situations. Question to the Prime Minister. I'm starting as Minister of Finance because it costs and funds have to be allocated to repair it and maintain it. Question to the Minister: what exactly um, they have they been doing in terms of utilizing it? How often do they have it? Do they maintain it? How often have they had to switch over to it? Is it being used at all? Has it been vandalized in any way? Anything taken from it? um and that is some of the thing, and it bothers me because what when we start to dissect and ask these questions, it really makes you wonder what is happening, who is overseeing the management of things. How frustrated are people who know what needs to happen and are perhaps not able to do what they are able to do. What is the how functional is the board? Who is serving on the board? Who is chairing the board right now? How involved are officials on the Ministry of Health and the Minister of Health and the second Minister of Health, and who is responsible for the hospital? We're not hearing the last thing I would say, because there's so much I could say about the hospital. There was a health levy imposed. There are two things I want to say. There was a health levy imposed. How much money is being collected? As I said, because is it going to the consolidated fund but earmarked for the hospital, or is it going somewhere else?
$50 million a year,
50. No, if it's
50.
$50 million a year in a levy, if Kimar can look, you can then compare the 50. I don't have the estimates in front of me, but you can compare 50 million as a levy to the amount of money that has been allocated to the hospital in the initial budget estimates exercise, and how much supplementary money is given to the hospital. And that 50 million you can look at the relationship between that and how much money. So in other words, what percentage of a total budget given, let's say, annually for the last 20 years, given before it was implemented, in the 2 or so years before it was implemented, and now, how much does that represent and where is it going? The other thing that I want to mention is, because for persons like Heather in the diaspora, people Barbadians overseas are always asking to make donations to the hospital. Over the years, there were some issues because people would, and in their desire and I was trying to find the word, excitement about donating to their home and so on. They would send things to Barbados, and then you would go through a problem trying to get them cleared and whether they were appropriate. A list of the kind of requirements for the hospital would have been put in place. An approach to receiving philanthropic donations and so on was put in place, and so on. My question is, what is happening to those? What systems is that system still in place? We also had situations where cash donations are made to the hospital, and significant sums. How are these things accounted for? Is the board reporting? I mean, there is so much more. And as I said, I paid attention. As a former cabinet member, I went to being responsible for portfolio, but we had to understand what happened across all ministries, and we would have listened to our colleagues, share information, make decisions. So when I reflect on this, I do so from a position of having sat and seen problems, seen and participated in coming up with solutions. I saw it firsthand, not as a patient, thank God. I have not, I knock on wood, I have not had to go into the hospital in my life, and I pray that I will continue. Certainly not the QEH. Well, the only time I really had to go into the hospital was to give birth to my son, so I am keeping my fingers crossed.
The
But
20th of October.
that is correct. And I will stick a pin there to say that I am such a credit unionist that my son was born on the day that my credit union was registered. At least not the same year, but the date, the 20th of October. So while 10 years, 8 years after, but anyhow, that's it. But anyhow, thanks for remembering Kazra because his birthday is coming up soon. Um, but I have been associated with the hospital in so many ways that I cannot, and it is the only one. If you or I get sick, Marcia, Kimar, Heather not here, but if she were to come home and she got sick, this is where we have to go, and so this is where we have to go. Um, and of course, there are the issues then of the supporting polyclinics, etc. But we can talk about this a lot more because Marcia, our healthcare, like our education. We have education from nursery to tertiary, and tertiary being not only university, but other technical programs and so on at SJP, um, Institute of Technology, Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute of Technology, Barbados Community College, etc. But the next thing is our health. And this is where we all have to go unless we can afford private care or be flown out
Correct.
of Barbados or catch a plane and go and seek help somewhere else.
Right. But we can't. The politicians, they can. That's what they do. We can't. We can't. So this is such
Not
a
all politicians can, and not all politicians will. No, I have to defend politicians. I was one. Some people tell me I never
well,
was one, but I was one.
well,
But no,
a
in
lot
all
of
seriousness,
them,
though, in
have
reality,
the wherewithal. A lot of them, and a lot of
precisely.
them, they don't trust the system. They don't trust the healthcare system that they are presiding over, that their government is presiding over, and we've seen it happen even in other Caribbean countries where the leader of St. Vincent came here. So can you imagine
Well, he
his
came here
system?
because if they don't have the facilities there, no, if they don't have the facility. In fact, talking about that, the QEH when I was a young woman, half my life ago, the QEH was the mecca for a lot of patients across the Eastern Caribbean.
Mm,
And that was the case. I'm not sure it's happening now, but if they don't have the care and you can be all part of CARICOM and you come here, but I'm not going to hop on a plane and go to Miami or whatever. We have some. I will share this with you.
that's you. That's you, Miss McLean.
No,
That's
yeah,
you.
I can only speak to me for me. But
Correct.
I will
Yeah.
also say this to people. We have some very good doctors. There's a friend of mine whose brother was ill and they could not figure out what was wrong with him. And they told him to come to the US. You know, when he got to the US, he was told by the guy, a doctor, but the person who I think can really help you is Dr. So and so. But he's in Barbados. The guy smiled and said, but that's where I came from. The point I'm making is we have very highly skilled doctors and so on. And for those who work at the hospital, what we want to make sure is that the systems are working to support them, but also are working in a way that focuses ultimately on the patient, because without patients, there will be no need for doctors or nurses or orderlies or maids or whoever else in the hospital. But what we want to make sure is that everybody, all the stakeholders of the hospital and in our healthcare system, are able to function maximally in terms of delivery of service, function maximally after getting care if they're patients. And I think these things are important. And anytime we see things lapsing at the hospital, you know, then we have to talk about it. We have to demand changes and insist on those because our very lives depend on that.
Depend on it. Depend definitely. Heather, do you have any questions
Yes.
for Miss McLean? We have 15 minutes.
Um,
So we're gonna be wrapping up soon. Mr. Franklin, get ready for the closing comments. And Kimar, do you have any questions from Miss McLean? Go ahead, Heather, before Kimar.
no, I don't have any questions for her tonight. However, in my wrap up, I want to address someone's situation, a situation that's happening in Barbados. So you can go to Kimar.
Go to Kimar. Kimar, any questions for Miss
Yeah.
McLean
Well, I don't
or
have
comments?
a comment. I wanted to say that given the fact that Barbados is under an IMF program, uh, institutions such as healthcare, free healthcare, free education, those are two of the largest social services that we have in terms of budget in Barbados, right? And they went a long way in transforming and lifting Barbados from the time they came in the earlier 50s, 60s, right? Barbados went through a transition economically where we had to go out in the world and participate for what we want. So we had to put a lot of extra costs throughout the years, throughout the 90s, the early 2000s, and it has put Barbados under significant pressure to compete globally with other countries. So the amount of money that we had available for social services to provide health care and better roads and the stuff that our government's supposed to do, we know how to take that money and put it in foreign exchange to import goods and services, to import medication for the same hospital, to get medical equipment that we're short of. So the hospital is suffering significantly because we seem not to have the wherewithal to stock up the hospital to ensure that people coming there could get things like gauze. I remember somebody put a video saying that they can't get gauze in the hospital. So when it came time to COVID now and the emergency, they had the drugs ready, they had the army ready, they were out there, right? So this is where we spoke about institutions like the army becoming more practical. That if you have the hospital there and the hospital breaking down, why can't you get some of the same soldiers that are masons and carpenters or whatever to come and help repair, electricians to come and help repair the hospital if need be if you don't have the funds? Why don't you get go along the innovative way and stop saying that we have a shortage of foreign exchange, or start saying that because of the global financial this or uh, some other thing, or start saying it's just the IMF program. Well, it is the IMF program, so hence the reason all of the taxes, hence the reason for the cutting the budgets, hence the reason for disturbance in management, because all of these things are systemically being reduced because of the stringencies of the IMF program and principles that we once relied upon now have to be changed. And this is where we spoke about a new social order emerging in Barbados, where you're going to simply have to pay for healthcare in Barbados, lock, stock, and barrel. You may have to pay to send your children to school, like what happens in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Right? We spoke about toll roads. You may have to pay to drive on toll roads. So I said all that to say really, because I want to wrap up, that given the fact that we are $4 billion in debt, says the government that they put on us since they came into power, we have not seen any substantial improvements in the social services that we have and that in the social services that the government provides. The debt is going up, but all of the services are getting significantly worse. The personnel are getting worse because they're firing top professionals to hire political lackeys and friends. And eventually they're going to say that we are incapable of handling it, and they're going to basically turn it over into private hands they are part of the course of the IMF program.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Great analysis there. We literally have 10 minutes. Heather, so you will just only touch, introduce it, and then what we will do, we will speak about it again on
Another
Wednesday.
time.
Yeah,
Yes.
but my God, tonight is hot. Go ahead,
Tonight
Heather,
is fire.
and
Yes.
then we're gonna leave enough time for the general here to close up for us.
Okay. Um, I want to speak on the behalf of a man named Everton Cumberbatch. He gave me permission to speak, and he has 32 acres of prime real estate property located near to the Granny Adams International Airport. And for some time now, he has been trying to get a matter through court regarding this land. And I wouldn't go into the details. However, yes, today or over the weekend, there was a for sale sign placed on the land. And quite recently in Barbados, we have been faced with many situations where persons are being their lands are being taken over. We've had a number of cases dating back years, but it is no, I guess some time ago I was wondering, and I told him perhaps yours might be next, but I never knew that it could happen or happen so soon. So he has an idea to get his property developed, and he has international help. People are just waiting for the situation to be resolved. And lo and behold, this for sale sign was placed on his land. He said he was going to the police, and he said he would go tomorrow. However, I told him to ask the people who are now selling the land on the behalf of some lawyers, ask them to produce the deeds. They can't produce any deeds because the land is not theirs, but yet there is a for sale sign on this land. And this is something that we need to root out in Barbados. How can people think that because persons that some things are good for two people, too good for excuse me, some land is not good enough for some people in Barbados? Why does it have to be that way? The Bible says that we should not covet what is not ours. We shouldn't bear false witness against our neighbors, and we should not steal. And he is a victim of all three of these aspects of the biblical law. And just as Barbadians were able to rise up in support of the young lady last week, I am hoping that they will rise up in support of this man. His land needs to be his, not anybody else's. And I am going to I've started to share that information on my Facebook page, and perhaps on Wednesday or Friday, we can go into it some more.
Yes. Thank you, Heather. Yes, we need to research that some more. I will speak to Mr. Franklin off air about that, and just to check into it some more. Because probably it's an elderly person who might not have the money like Savvy to do a whole media campaign, social media campaign, and might not be young as the other young lady to understand how to use the media. So if it is something that is legitimate and we research it, then why not? Let's help him. Or let it not go the way of Miss Ram. Okay, so
Correct.
over to
Correct.
yes. Heather, thank you for bringing that up. Mr. Franklin, go ahead, sir.
And thanks, Marcia. I listened to Maxine and thoroughly enjoyed her presentation, but there were some questions she was asking, and I don't know if I could provide one or two answers. The national insurance contribution has in it a health service contribution in it.
Right.
It's,
Go speak
it's,
up a little more in the microphone. They're saying yes. Yeah.
yeah, the national insurance contribution has a component of the 2.5% of your insurable earnings the employee pays 1% and the employer pays 1.5%. To my mind, that is an illegal aspect because it happened during a budget. And any money raised in a budget, according to the Provisional Collection of Taxes Act, must go to the consolidated fund. So when government imposes that levy, it does not go to the consolidated fund. What it goes to national insurance, and national insurance is supposed to transfer it where they're supposed to, probably Ministry of Health. That is not properly accounted for. That is why we have a consolidated fund to put government revenue. This is not government revenue. It has nothing to do with national insurance. Your national insurance should be, I'll give you an example. You pay for non-contributory pensions, 2% of that, 11% you pay, 11.1%, 2% of that goes to non-contributory, and then another 1% goes to this have service fund. Your national insurance should be reduced by those two amounts because the non-contributory pension is a function of the government, not the national insurance. It's not, you haven't insured anything. What government has done is to take the burden from the welfare department and place it on the back of the average, the workers. The workers are paying taxes already, and that is where those taxes will go to support the people through welfare or whatever else. National insurance is for contributors to that scheme. That's where national insurance is to hide. Government hides away, just like they did with the water authority. And they put the water authority to collect taxes. And because water authority should not be collecting taxes and then keeping it. Because you remember that the market bear on this, where the CEO of the water authority saying that they use the money. Remember, Kimar?
Yeah, he said that he spent the money. He just took the money and spent it to run the water authority because the government was not giving him any money as soon as he wanted. No check or balance.
Misappropriation of government funds. But however you like it, however you cut it, however you slice it, it is misappropriation of government funds. But the government allowed do these things and hide money away from the consolidated fund where it should naturally go. I don't take my word for it. Check the Provisional Collection of Taxes Act. That is the act that allows the government to raise taxes without first going to Parliament. And then you have to come to within 4 months, I think it is 4 months after your 4 month period, then to bring the enabling legislation. Government raise these levies in their budget. You can only raise money in the budget that goes to the consolidated fund. It's as simple as that. So government is doing some fancy footwork with our finances and not disclosing exactly how and where and why these problems are happening. Again, we talk about this is in the hospital. On the 19th of December last year, I spent 12 hours in the hospital standing next to my mother. I stood for 12 hours, but I didn't give me the chair. And my mother was ill. And while I was there, I saw some atrocious things. I saw a man didn't have a relative with him, and he was there writhing in pain. And next thing you know, I saw him stop moving. Hours passed. I thought he went to sleep. Then after a long time, I saw they came and they tried to put an IV on him, and then I see the doctor throw up my hands in frustration, put the IV on top of him and walk away. Next thing you know, I saw the orderly come in and roughing up this man. So I walk up to the front. I want to see this. The orderly wasn't roughing him up really, you know. He was straightening him out. He was in rigor mortis. The man had died, and he was bent up so badly, and they wanted to move him up, but he was so bent up that the orderly tried to get him straightened out so he can transport him to the morgue or wherever they take him. He was there all along and dead. Went into rigor mortis, and nobody knew. And the thing is, it was right outside the nurse's station because There was no clinical available for him, so they put him right next to the nurses station, and the people walked past him because he didn't have a relative or anybody to stand up for him. That man, well, every judge, he looked young to me because I could see his head. He didn't have a gray hair on it, but that is what's happening. They're not, mind you, the doctors were busy. They had very few nurses. I remember calling a nurse that deal with my mother, and she came to me and she's talking Spanish. I don't know no Spanish. She don't know no English, and we trying to communicate. you know, and eventually we managed to get something because my Spanish I know is arroz con pollo. I forgot you know. You know, when I go to a restaurant, I can tell you, brother, arroz con pollo, and I have a point. So when she was trying to talk to me, but I can't understand what the other woman telling me. But you are getting rid of local nurses, treating them very badly. I'm bringing in nurses from Cuba, nurses from Ghana, and sometimes we had nurses from Nigeria, we had nurses from India. And I tell people, let me do something. Suppose you have.
I'm paying no less than Barbadians.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
You have
You know,
nurses working, they don't know Bajan. So only they come in and say, I go up on my boxy. Nobody know what she's talking about. And they might understand that you just can't bring nurses into Barbados and put them there because you laughing, but serious. No Nigerian don't know what boxy is. And the girls don't know what boxy is. And you and
listen, as a foreigner, I understand that completely. I understand that. I remember. I know we have to close, but I have to tell you this real quick. I was advertising something and I used some words in a Christian chat. Clear out the chat. I was told it was Bajan bad words, you know. So I totally understand, you know, not knowing boxy. Anyway, go ahead. Quickly,
you know,
one more minute. 1 minute though. 1 minute, Mr. Franklin. And we will pick up on
what they
Wednesday.
are doing to save money. Because let me tell you something. I wrote an article calling the Cuban nurses slaves because they didn't pay the Cuban nurses, you know. Their money was paid to the government of Cuba. And they were given a little stipend to buy groceries and stuff, but they were not given the salary. And the government preferred to do that rather than one, train more nurses, and two, retain the nurses by treating them properly. We have nurses, and I'm sorry, I'm sad to say that when we had our strike a couple of years ago, nurses said we are not going back under these conditions. Some of them are now in New York earning more money than the Prime Minister because they get, yes, trust me, Barbadian nurses are very highly valued in the United States, United Kingdom, and Canada. That is why the Nigerians came here. And once you show Barbados on your CV, they snatch you up.
Yeah,
so Nigerian nurses were just in transit. A lot of them were just in transit. Once you have Barbados on your CV, people say, oh, Barbados, because they make it very difficult for you to become a nurse in Barbados.
You know what we need to do, Mr. Franklin? What we need to do is I think we need to do a show because this is so important. Listen to Miss McLean tonight. We need to do a show that comes up. We outline what the issues are and then come up with solutions, come up with proposals, come up with ideas like a think tank and put together something. This is the health of our country. And let's put that together. I think we should do that.
There is one overarching proposal that we need to implement. Get rid of these people who are governing us.
Amen.
And you will see things fall into place. Or if you do that, a lot of these things, Maxine spoke about the when they had these concepts, they took the recommendations and implement them. No, look at the National Insurance Proposal Act, the Amendment Act. They had the act then, and then when they realized that they're going to get some proposals, they had to hold meetings. They haven't changed a single thing about the act that they had in place because that was just been dressing to make people believe they were doing something. Same thing they're doing with the airport. After everything is put in place, they don't come out and talk about they have a consultation.
Well,
You know
what
what?
we can do is what we can do as a record, because we are the opposition. We are. I totally believe that, Miss McLean. We are. We are. We have to be those patriots for Barbados. We have to stand up for Barbados, Bajans. I'm a Bajan. Don't mind, don't let this accent fool you. You understand me? We are the opposition, Barbados. And so, yes, we've outlined the problems. We're going to come back on the show and sit down, and we're going to have a think tank, and we're going to go through, and we're going to come up with proposals and solutions, because we're just brilliant like that. Barbados is a brilliant place. We have brilliant minds, and we can do this. Okay, we can do this. So, guys, Saturday at 10 o'clock, we have the march. That's one of the things that we do. Somebody asked, what are we doing? This is one of them. The opposition, we are going to be seen. We're going to bathe with clean self and put our clean clothes, and we're going out there Saturday at 10 o'clock, and we march until the walls come down. That is one of the things that we do. We do this show. You do your what you do at your workplace. Do work in your community. But we're going on Saturday. Everybody, all 400 of us that's on here. We go down to Massacre Park in front of Kensington Oval. And what are we marching about? No to the NIS and pension bill, the child protection bill, transparency and accountability, justice for workers. We hear all about it. We could easily add the whole thing with the QAH reform on it, right? And all of that we can add. Okay, so march this Saturday. Please don't. We're not joking. If four of us, 400 of us, and if each of us invite 5 persons, that's about 2,000, and they will no longer call us a fringe group. That's what they say we are. We're fringe, okay? And they will start taking notice, okay? So see you all, and thank you so
Marcy,
much
before you
to
do
the
that,
panel.
Marcy,
Yes,
before
sir.
you try to wrap up, remind the people though that these marches come out of our pockets if they don't help us.
Oh
So
yes, thank you.
we need some assistance.
Yes, we need assistance, financial assistance, guys, for the march. And I'm going to put the number again to here, and you can call this number to arrange donation, right? So please, we do need that. We've been a little tardy on that in reminding you about that. You've done very well, Barbados, in helping us with all the other 3 marches, and this one we need 2,000, at least $2,500, okay, to cover for the police permit, the truck, the sound system, because we're not going to go inside Independence Square and have a big thing as we used to do, because it costs too much. All right, so we need you to call the number and help us out. You've always done that, so I know you will do that. Okay, and we're going to be on again on Wednesday. Thank you, Kimar, for stopping by. Wasn't that so insightful? Very insightful, very deep. We need to dig into that some more. I want to thank Miss McLean for coming on and just being again so thorough, very, very thorough. And Heather, we can't. What could we do without Mr. Franklin? You saw the top of the show. The man went through the all of what's happening with the public sector, with the workers, and
Yes.
broke down the laws and have me write down laws. And I mean, felt like I was in school, you know. And of course, the Vincent Smith, who went through the child protection bill and more, and talked about comprehensive sexuality education, and which was one of the areas that we'll be marching about on Saturday. And Heather, I want to thank you for being a great co-host. It's always great to have you. Great questions, and I love the energy.
Thank
And
you.
we will. Okay. Oh, somebody said, oh, to add a donation link to your YouTube. I will ask someone to help me to do that, Valerie. In the meantime, Valerie, if you can give us a WhatsApp this number, let my phone ring off the hook and let's pay for this march tonight. Okay, 2,500. God bless you all and have a good night. And come hard. You said something about your sister, or your niece, Kamhar. If you're still on, I hope you're on. Can you give me a call, please, at this number? I would like to speak to you about that niece or that sister. Call the number that is up there at the screen. Please, please, please. Okay. God bless you all and see you
Good
all
night.
on Wednesday. Good night.
Have a
Bye
good night,
bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye
Good
bye.
night.
All right, good night. Good night. Good night.